Okay. They
Mayor
didn't
Pro
come.
Tem Johnson, the scout troop's supposed to be at the December 20th city council meeting. That may have been an error to you.
They just printed the wrong thing.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Just
That's
clarify that.
That's okay. Mr. Matheny, right after the moment of silence, if you lead us in you led the last time, didn't you? In the Pledge of Allegiance. We'll have a moment of silence. Thank you. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome to the Katie Dorset Chamber. Residents may sign up to speak by 6 p.m. by using the Qminder kiosk just outside the chamber door. So see the courier for assistance. Council procedures for conduct of this meeting. Motion and votes will be conducted electronically. The mayor is not here this evening, as you can see, and Dr. Goldie Wells is on Zoom with us. Motions and votes will be conducted electronically. Each member of the council must vote unless there is a direct conflict. We do allow for and welcome speakers to address council on agenda items. The council respects the right for the public to speak about matters of concern that can be addressed by us. Each speaker will be allotted 3 minutes. Comments that seem to be intended to incite unlawful behavior will be deemed to be out of order. Zoom participants are requested to mute their microphones until called upon to speak. Zoning matters allow for a 15-minute presentation, both for and against the rezoning. There is also a 5-minute rebuttal period for each side, pro and con. Following the introduction of each case, if applicable, staff will make a presentation before opening the floor for questions from the council and council members. The mayor will call on speakers in the order in which they appear on our roster. All speakers should identify themselves with their name for the record. Once an item has been completed, the meeting host will remove speakers from said item from the Zoom call. Council will make a motion and a second to close the public hearing. The floor will be open for council deliberation and discussion. Motions and seconds to move an item should be entered electronically. And I think our clerk told us everything is working fine on these computers, so let's use them. And they'll be voted on by roll call. The mayor will announce the vote results. The city of Greensboro is committed to promoting an environment that is free of discrimination, bias, and bullying. Thus, harassment, words, jokes, actions, or comments based on an individual's sexual orientation, sex, race, ethnic background, age, religion, physical condition, or other legally protected characteristics will not be tolerated. In order to be considered, written comments must be submitted online through the city website. We have a consent agenda this evening for items G1 through G19, which are a grouping of agenda items that are voted on with one single vote to expedite what we believe to be non-controversial issues. Due to a conflict of interest or for the purpose of voting no, items removed from the consent agenda for discussion will be placed on the December 20th City Council Business Agenda. This meeting does include closed caption. So if we last to 7:30, we may have to take a break. There's a request to postpone several items. Council, I'm going to read all of them. We can take them one by one, or we can we take them all at the same time, Mr. Attorney? Shall we take them one by one? To postpone.
I think they can be taken as a group, yeah.
Huh?
Yes.
Yes.
Be taken as a
okay.
group.
Yes. All right. H6, a public hearing for an ordinance annexing territory into the corporate limits for property located at 5566 Burlington Road, 338,688 acres. Publix Supermarket Incorporated. That's the first that they have requested a postponement. Second is H7, which is a public hearing for an ordinance for original zoning for 5566 Burlington Road, Randolph L. Barber for Publix Supermarket, Inc. And item H8, a public hearing for an ordinance annexing territory into the corporate limits for property located at 1822 Youngs Mill Road and 4701 Hickory Valley Road, generally described as west of Youngs Mill and north of Hickory Valley Road, 39,000. Is that 39,095 or what is that? Oh, 39.95 acres, okay. And item H9 is a public hearing for an ordinance for rezoning for portions of 4402, 4408, 4410, and all of 4412 North Church Street. Mark Isaacson for Takaska Construction LLC on behalf of Patty C. and Robert L. Phillips and Gary S. Upchurch.
Madam Mayor Pro Tem, I believe, Mr. Kirkman, there's a request also for items 4 and 5 for a postponement. Can we add those to that group?
If you will do that, that would be fine.
Are they asking for a postponement or that? And I
Councilman.
think we have people on the line that need to know that, before we just take that in a group. H5.
Mayor Pro Tem, also the two items for 4 and 5 are being requested to be postponed to a different date. So the 4 that she just read into the record, if you guys could take a voice vote to postpone those to December the 20th.
It may not be the 20th.
And then the other two they were requesting for a 60-day continuance rather than 30.
So, Mr. Matheny, if we can vote on this and then make your.
Yes,
okay.
ma'am.
All right, I need a
Okay.
motion.
So moved.
Moved. You second? Moved by Councilman Holston and seconded by Councilwoman Abuzawader. Council, please vote. I'm gonna call your names, but go on and vote. Councilwoman Hoffman. Councilwoman Thurn.
Yes.
I'm a yes. Councilwoman Abuzawader.
Yes.
Councilman Matheny. Councilman Houston. Holston. And Councilwoman Hightower.
Yes,
Is Dr. Wells on the line?
Not yet.
All right,
No, ma'am.
that passes 3, 4, 5, 7-0. I see you raising your hand. If you are the person that has an objection to one of these, I'm going to allow you to come up and address your objection. I think it's with the one that Mark Isaacson has, if I'm not mistaken. He was summoned to another jurisdiction by the mayor. And that's part of the reason we're doing this. But if you would like to say something, you certainly can. Okay, we're gonna go on to the ones that you were mentioning, Mr. Matheny.
Yes, ma'am. I think the request was for a 60-day continuance for items 4 and 5.
And
Asking for a 60-day continuance for items 4 and 5.
Right. But Madam Mayor, Pro Tem, in all fairness, there are people on the call here that got on the call on the Zoom for the purposes of this item. So just blanket, just saying, move it, continue without an explanation. I think they deserve to know and understand, yes, it's a 60-day continuance. And that is being requested by the applicant. Generally, we try to make sure that both parties are in agreement for a continuance. Has been the pattern in the past. And we have not simply just approved one side versus another. And the opposition may be okay, but I think they just need to be inquired of and asked.
Is this the first time for request for postponement for them?
It is-
I think somebody would
As
be.
as long as I've been on here, the first request for postponement we have granted. Almost always we have granted. I understand what you're saying about the
Right.
people. And I hope they will understand if that's the case. But is there a second on this?
second it.
Seconded by Councilwoman Hoffman.
I just want to make sure, since it's in
I
my
understand.
district, that the people understand.
I do.
I just don't do that.
Right, I
up front
appreciate your
without
remarks.
explanation and transparency.
Council will vote. Councilwoman Hoffman,
Yes.
Councilwoman Thurm.
Yes.
I'm a yes. Councilwoman Abuza Wade. Councilman Matheny. Yes. Councilman Holston,
Yes.
Councilwoman Hightower. Councilwoman Hightower.
Yes,
Let me say this to the people who might be online that Sharon had referred to. I've been here longer than anyone, even the staff. But the first request we have generally always granted. I know that there was one objection and it came through, and I wanted to at least give you a chance to speak if you wanted to. I think you know, that's the right thing to do. But when I learned that he was summoned to another jurisdiction by the mayor to speak, and this was the first request for postponement for that person too, but you generally give the first one. The second may not work out too well. So I just want you to know that's the way, that's why we're doing what we're doing, and we have a precedent for it, and that's what it is. Okay, thank you. All right, we did 4 and 5. Are those all of the postponements? And now we're ready for the consent agenda,
Move the consent agenda.
moved by
second,
Councilman Hugh, second by Councilman Hightower. Councilwoman, Thurm,
Yes.
I'm a yes, Buzaweda. Matheny. Hugh,
Yes.
Hightower,
yes,
and that passes 7-0. Okay, is there a motion to approve the minutes of the special meeting of October 13th, 2022?
That was on the consent agenda.
It's on the consent agenda, so I don't have to read that. Okay, been a long time, guys. H1 is a public hearing for ordinance designating Poplar Hall 409-411 Sunset Drive, a Guilford County Historic Landmark. We have staff who'll speak on that. Okay. Good evening.
Okay.
Try that one again, Mike.
My name is Mike Cowhig, Planning Department. And this item is a request for landmark designation for Poplar Hall, which is located at 409 Sunset Drive in the Irving Park National Register Historic District. And just a little bit of background, the city participates in a countywide joint landmark program. The Guilford County Historic Preservation Commission recommends landmark designation to the governing body of the jurisdiction where the property is located. And then the governing body makes the final decision. And owners of landmark properties are eligible for a property tax deferral of up to 50%, but they must obtain a certificate of appropriateness before making any changes to their property. And Poplar Hall is one of the earliest houses in Irving Park. It was built in 1914 for attorney and politician Aubrey Lee Brooks, who served as general counsel for the Jefferson Standard Life Insurance Company, which is now Lincoln Financial. The house is still owned by the Brooks family today. And I'd just like to say that very rarely do we see historic houses that have been preserved and maintained to the level of Poplar Hall. And this is what we like to see with the landmark program. Property owners who invest in the preservation of their special historic property are rewarded by a reduction in their property taxes through landmark designation. And we think that reduction in property taxes can be looked at as helping defray the high cost of maintaining a special house like this. And it helps ensure the preservation for future generations. And in return, there is a definite economic impact for the community that comes with maintaining and preserving historic property. And as we know, unfortunately, some of the early houses in Irving Park have been lost. So we're especially pleased that they have decided to take this step. And with that, Samantha Smith, who is the architectural historian who prepared the landmark application, is on Zoom tonight, and she would be happy to answer any questions about the history or the architecture of the house.
Anybody have any questions for her? All right, thank you. Appreciate it. Move it. Second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Second. Okay, the items have been moved and seconded. Councilwoman Hoffman. Councilwoman Thurman.
Yes.
I'm a yes. Councilwoman Abuzawader.
Yes.
Councilman Matheny. No?
Yes.
What did I say?
Councilwoman.
Oh, Councilman. I know you're a man. Councilwoman Matheny, please forgive me. Councilman Holston.
Yes.
I keep messing up your name. Councilwoman Hightower.
Yes.
All right, that
Yes.
passes 7-0. I'm always happy when we are preserving things of value in our community. So I'm glad about that. Public hearing for a resolution ordering the making of certain local improvements. 1,445 linear feet of 8-inch sewer line extension from an existing outfall on Little Santee Road to 8,923 West Market Street.
Move the item.
Who moved the item? Moved by Councilwoman Thurm and second by Councilwoman Abuzawader. Let me look. Let me see.
She's right there.
Oh, yes, please speak.
I'm Virginia Spillman. I'm an assistant director for the Water Resources Department. We have been working with the property owner for over a year, and they have requested the extension for the sewer for 8923 West Market Street. The property is inside the city. And in accordance with section 6.140 of the city charter, we must have a public hearing to consider the property owner objection to the legality of authorizing the accessible sewer line. Guilford County has reviewed the property and the sewer or the septic. And it is, they don't have enough property to be able to do any other way to have septic. Therefore, the property owner has asked for your consideration for approval of the charter. I will be available for any questions if you may have any.
Thank you.
Move to close the public hearing.
Is there a second? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All right. There is a motion on this item. Council will vote. Or did we vote on it? I didn't think so. Council will vote. Councilwoman Hoffman?
Yes.
Councilwoman Thurm?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Councilwoman Abuzawader?
Yes.
Councilman Zach?
Yes.
Councilman Hugh?
Yes.
Councilman Hightower?
Yes,
Councilwoman Hightower. 7-0 is the vote. All right. Item H3 is a public hearing for the resolution closing Washington Road, Fremont Drive, and Oak Street Avenue. I don't see any on here for that one.
We do have one speaker on Zoom, Brian Wise.
He's the applicant.
can I hear from Mike Kirkland? I mean, I understand you all come in here with your mind made up and you already know what you want to do, but I really would like to kind of hear a little bit.
Actually, I do a lot of the pre-work.
I
before I
did,
come
I
here.
read my.
So it's not
agenda, too.
just about not just showing up
Well,
and get things done.
You,
I do my work prior.
I do mine too, but I still would like to hear.
I just want to
Just because I
clarify.
read stuff on
I
a
just
piece
want to
of paper.
clarify your
But the
comment.
way you all come in here, move it.
We're going to hear it.
Clarify on your comments, Ms. Hightower.
We're going to hear it. Go ahead.
Thank you, I believe. So the request, council may remember this particular location. There was an annexation and original zoning request a few months ago. This is near the corner of Guilford College and Sap Road. And so the closing of these unopened right of ways is the next step in the development process for that. So basically, there's 3 separate streets that were identified, Washington Road, Fremont Drive, and Oak Avenue, which you can see here in the hatch mark. The petition to close that road was signed by the vast majority of the owners of the property along that frontage. You have to have at least 51%, and it was 98% for that. In making the determination to close the public streets, the city has to make 2 findings, basically that the closing of that street is not contrary to the public interest, and that no property owner in the vicinity is deprived of reasonable means of ingress and egress. So the technical review committee did review this request to close these streets at their September 23rd meeting and did recommend to approve the street closing. There is one condition with that approval. Yeah, can you move that? Thanks. Basically, that the in order for the street closure to become effective, there has to be a plat recorded at the Guilford County Register of Deeds. Oops. There we go. Basically, that combines all the lots that touch these right of ways so that no lot is deprived of access and effectively has frontage and direct vehicular access to a public street. The Planning and Zoning Commission also considered this street closing request at their October meeting and did recommend the closing of the street with that additional stated condition. So the request before City Council this evening is to take any public comment and to vote on closing these three streets. And answer your questions.
So Mike, there was no opposition and there was no controversy about the closing.
No, these streets, basically, all of the properties that touch these streets are owned by the development group that wants to develop that. And it's a combination of multifamily and then potentially a little bit non-residential as well.
Yeah, that's what I read. Thank you.
And Mr. Kirkman, this started a while back with that
Yes,
redevelopment.
yeah, I forgot to look up the date, but the hearing on the annexation, the original zoning, I think was about 4 months ago when this
So
came to
council has heard something about this development prior.
the general development. Yes, right. This particular item is coming to you for the first
I
time.
think we had a motion and a second to close the public hearing.
So, Mr.
Oh.
Kirkman, so closing those streets won't be any kind of issue with emergency traffic?
No, what they're really going to do is combine all those properties into kind of one property and then subdivide it as they need to for the new development. But that is part of the condition of TRC saying yes, is that they had to agree to combine everything so that no lot
Right.
is left without access.
Okay, access. Okay, that was one of the concerns I had. Thank you for
You're welcome.
answering that question for me
You're welcome.
and all others.
I do my best.
There's a motion and a second to close the public hearing. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Move the item.
It's been moved in second to move the item, moved by Zach Matheny, seconded by Mary Kay Boothway. Council, please vote. Councilwoman Hoffman. Thurm,
Yes.
I'm a yes. Boothway. Matheny. You,
Yes.
Hightower,
Yes,
and that passes 7-0. The next item is H4. It's a public hearing for an ordinance annexing territory into the corporate limits.
we postponed that.
Oh,
The next item would be H10 at this point.
all righty, thank you. H10.
Can we switch
it is.
inputs, please?
No, we continued 6 and we continued 8 and 9. Okay, H10 is a public hearing for an ordinance for rezoning for 6101 Brushwood Court. Motto Vergeria and Associates. Yes, go ahead.
Sorry, I'm trying to get to it. It's not pulling up correctly. I apologize. I'm about to kind of move through the other ones. Okay, there we go. So the request this evening, again, is to rezone property at 6101 Brushwood Court from R3 residential single family to RM5 residential multifamily. As you can see on the map, all of the property surrounding this property is currently zoned R3 residential single family. The property is currently undeveloped at this time. It is surrounded by single family dwellings. The property itself is currently designated as industrial on the future land use map of the comprehensive plan and as planned industrial on the future built form map of the comprehensive plan. Staff notes that this rezoning request does support the comprehensive plans, filling in our framework goal to arrange land uses for a more vibrant and livable Greensboro and the creating great places goal to expand Greensboro's citywide network of unique neighborhoods, offering residents of all walks of life a variety of quality housing choices. And the proposed RM5 district does accommodate a number of other uses, residential uses, including duplexes, twin homes, townhomes, and cluster housing, in addition to the existing single family uses allowed in the current zoning. Staff has concluded that these uses are compatible with the adjacent existing residential uses and then provide additional housing options in close proximity to a number of employment uses in the area. Staff is recommending approval of this request. The Planning and Zoning Commission heard this request at their October 17th meeting and did vote to approve this request. But due to there being less than 6 affirmative votes, it came to City Council for additional hearing and action this evening. To answer any questions.
Are there any?
All right, we have 15 minutes for those who are in favor and 15 minutes for those who are opposed and 5 minutes each rebuttal. So I ask for the pros to come first.
Good evening. I'm Mauro Ruggieri and I reside at 1207 Hounslow Drive in Greensboro. I am the owner and president of Ruggieri Associates, Inc. And I've been building homes in the city of Greensboro and Guilford County for the last 42 years. I think we all know that there's a need for more residential housing in Greensboro, and we have a limited supply. This is one of the reasons why I decided to rezone this lot at 6101 Brushwood to RM5 so that I can build a twin home, which would have 2 units. This particular lot is over a half an acre. It has 120-foot frontage. It is larger than most city lots, and I think it will accommodate a twin home very easily. Prior to this meeting, I personally knocked on every owner-occupied residence on Brushwood Court, Brushwood Road, and Grassy Meadow Place. I spoke to every property owner with the exception of 3 properties because I could not find those folks at home at the time. So I did go back a second time and still was unable to find them at home. Everyone I spoke to was very positive. I really didn't get any negative response from anyone. I'm open to any questions and I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Are there those who are opposed?
None.
Move to close the public hearing.
Second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right,
Move the item.
Second.
that you hear? Okay, moved by Councilman Hugh, second by Councilman Mary Kay. Council will vote.
As part of the motion, we need to read the statement of consistency with the comprehensive plan.
Oh, that's. Let's do that.
Do what?
The Greensboro City Council believes that its action to approve the rezoning request for the property identified as 6101 Brushwood Court from R3 Residential Single Family 3 to RM5 Residential Multifamily 5 to be consistent with the adopted GSO 2040 Comprehensive Plan and considers the action taken to be reasonable and the public interest for the following reasons. The request is consistent with the comprehensive plan's future build form map and future land use map. The proposed RM5 zoning district permits uses which fit the context of the surrounding area and limits negative impacts on the adjacent properties. The request is reasonable due to the size, physical conditions, and other attributes of the area. It will benefit the property owner and surrounding community, and approval is in the public interest.
And it has been moved in second. Councilwoman Hoffman. Thurm,
Yes.
I'm a yes. Abuzawader. Matheny, Halston.
Yes.
Yes.
And that passes 7-0. Public hearing item 11, H11, public hearing for ordinance for rezoning located at a portion of 5440 Mill Stream Road. Amanda Hodier, Hodier
Mayor Pro
for
Tem,
CCC Development Partners LLC.
Mayor Pro Tem, you want to check and see if Goldie's on? No, she's not coming.
I didn't hear you.
You want to check and see if Goldie's on right
Yes.
now or no?
Is Dr. Wells?
She
on?
has not joined the meeting. I sent her a text and have not heard from her.
Okay,
She
Thank
mentioned, she mentioned she might be in an airport and wouldn't be able to come on.
okay, thank you, Sharon.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, city council members. The request before you this evening is to rezone approximately 29.36 acres from Business Park BP to Conditional District Light Industrial CDLI. North and west of this request is currently zoned Business Park. East of the request is zoned County CP Corporate Park. South of the request is zoned County CP Corporate Park and County AG Agricultural. The property is currently undeveloped at this time. North and west of this request is a combination of office, industrial, and research uses. East of the request is currently undeveloped. South of the request contains agricultural land and undeveloped land. The property is currently designated as industrial on the future land use map of the comprehensive plan and as a planned industrial on the future built form map of the comprehensive plan. This is the condition that was associated with this request and advertised as part of the hearing. Staff has concluded that this proposed rezoning does support the comprehensive plan's growing economic competitiveness, big idea to build a prosperous, resilient economy that creates equitable opportunities to succeed. It notes that this proposed CDLI district allows a variety of warehouse, industrial, distribution, and office uses that are generally consistent with surrounding uses on adjacent or nearby properties, and that this change will provide additional development flexibility for this property while not negatively impacting the existing large corporate research and manufacturing campus to the north and the west. And staff has recommended approval of this request. Planning and Zoning Commission did consider this matter at their October 17th meeting, did vote to approve the request. Again, there was less than 6 affirmative votes, and so City Council is asked to have a public hearing on this item this evening and take action on this item. I can answer any questions.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor Pro Tem, if there's no one in opposition, I would like to move this item.
And
Go right ahead.
Mayor Pro Tem, since this is out in District 1, I would like to really hear from Amanda. The people that I voted me in and I represent like to know exactly what's going on in their area. And a lot of growth is going out that way. And so I think it deserves to be heard momentarily.
I still make the
And
motion.
so
And I second it.
Hey,
transparency out the window. So
What was the motion to move the item or close the public?
it was
hearing?
closed the public hearing, but
was to move the item. Sharon's point is she wants to hear from the people. I don't know how to do that, Sharon.
well, Amanda's here to speak on it too, to tell us what is
She
going.
could, I will allow her to speak, but
Right.
motion's gonna stand and we'll vote. on
Also,
it.
city clerk has noted that there is one speaker in opposition on this item as well.
See, that's what I'm talking about. See,
I asked for opposition. I asked for opposition.
that's what I'm talking about. Well, You
We asked
I'll-
if there was anyone in opposition and there was not. at
you
that
give
point.
Mayor Pro Tem time to do her job.
If you're in opposition, right now, I'm gonna give you an opportunity to speak.
Do you want to hear from the applicant first then?
Madam Mayor Pro Tem, if we could hear from the applicant first, and then for those who might speak in opposition.
Oh, yeah, just give him, yes, but let me hear the applicant first. That's correct. And then those are in opposition. I'll hear you.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and members of the council. Amanda Hodiern. My offices are at 804 Green Valley Road, Suite 200 here in Greensboro. I represent the property owner and the applicant for this petition in front of you tonight. That's CCC Development Partners LLC. I have with me tonight Mr. Tom Flanagan from that entity, who is their development manager, if we have any operational questions that he can help out with. As staff has very adequately stated in their report, this is about adding development flexibility to this site and this campus. I'm sure you're all familiar with this Carolina Corporate Center campus. It was the home of AT&T when they were at their height of industry use back in the 90s. They have very much shrunk that use and usage of this campus. And as such, my client has acquired this back in 2012 and has been slowly trying to repurpose it and bring it back to a contributing and valuable use here in the city. as we all know, the logistics industry is fastly growing, and we've become quite a hot market for that use. This locational map here shows you where we are situated in proximity to the I-85, I-40 corridor. And we're very quickly able to access that, as you can see, via Millstream Road and then right to the interchange there to get on that transportation corridor, making it pretty obvious why the logistics industry is interested in this site. This is a little carve out showing, this is approximately 29 acres. You can see here the hatched area of the map that just shows you where within the campus we're asking for this rezoning to be applicable. And as you've heard, we're trying to go to light industrial with conditions to limit out the more noxious light industrial uses. But the reason is really a technical one, because in the BP district, you can only do 60,000 square feet of distribution and warehousing for that logistical interest. And that's just not enough for the magnitude of interest here. The space we have here, the proximity to the interstates, we can really handle a lot more than that. And we can't do that in the BP district. So that's the reason. The use is already allowed. It's just the degree of it that we need the rezoning for. This is just an aerial map showing you that what you just saw on the hatched area, where this would fit into the context of the campus. And these are our proposed conditions showing those uses that we are proposing to eliminate from the LI district. I'll be happy to answer. We did hold a neighborhood meeting on Zoom prior to coming into Planning and Zoning Commission on this. We had one attendee to participate in that, and they were a property manager of the Eastport Office Center that shares a boundary with this campus, and they were in favor. I think had been working with my client all along in sort of their redevelopment plans, and really were just logging on to do their due diligence, but had no further questions. I'll be happy to answer any questions, but I think that covers it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And you will have a 5-minute rebuttal if you, as
Thank
soon
you.
as
Thank you.
the cons. Those in opposition?
Good evening. My name is Kevin Thomas. I'm actually a business owner across the interstate from this particular piece of property. And my only concern is that with Publix being adjacent to us, we have a current problem with trucks as it is. So the one thing I really want to be wary of is this could become a truck stop, because at Knox Road and the intersection of Mount Hope Church Road, we have an abundance of trucks that get on and off that interstate now with Publix being there. So my only concern is that this could not be a truck stop per se. And we've already had a couple of head-on collisions on Knox Road, but our office actually looks directly across at the 29 acres. So that's my only concern.
Thank you.
So Amanda,
Are there other, want to speak in opposition? You have a 5-minute rebuttal. And sir, you have a 5-minute rebuttal as well.
Thank you. From what I've just heard and understand, I believe his concern was just, investigating and making sure that the proposed use and the reason for this change was not a truck terminal, as you've heard. It is not, as you've heard from my presentation. So, I'll reiterate that. Our goal here is to get out from under that 60,000 square foot cap on the warehousing and distribution. It's not to create a truck terminal. So I don't believe that we have any conflict here, but I'll be happy to further elaborate on that or ease any concerns.
Mayor Pro Tem, I had a question for Amanda.
Sure.
Trying to find my thing here. So Amanda, did you all have a need for a traffic impact analysis?
No,
with
ma'am, I
what
did not.
would be brought? Okay. So how close are you to the exchange that he referenced? Because just most recently, I've gotten an email from someone else that is concerned about all those trucks exiting that way, going to Publix as well. So that's a concern out there.
So from this image, we can see that the interchange that would be in play for this piece of my subject piece of property is the Mount Hope Church Road interchange. And then you'd be heading south, south of the interstate corridor to the Carolina Corporate Center property. From my understanding, if he's on Knox Road up near the Publix facility, I don't know that there'd be a lot of inherent conflict with those two locations.
You would be coming away from the Publix.
Yes, ma'am.
facility. Okay, and so it's a warehouse, but you have no desire to be a truck stop
No, ma'am.
of any magnitude?
No, this campus is well situated for these logistical type of users, office, flex space, research and development, sort of the soft flex corporate, industrial type users in a campus like setting. So, I think to introduce a full blown truck stop in the middle of that would really be, disparate to our goals for the redevelopment of this site.
All right, thank you for answering that question.
Thank you.
So then illustratively, then you don't intend to have a truck stop here and his property is on the other side of 85.
We do not intend to have a truck stop, and my understanding from his comments is that his property is on the other side of 85. Yes,
Thank you.
thank you.
Does that satisfy your concern? Okay. You'd like to say something, you certainly can.
I'm in agreement with her based on her comments. And like I said, we literally look out of our front door directly across at that facility. So as I was stating, my only concern is we face the trucks every day. We're just on the other side of the stoplight. So she's correct. All of the traffic exiting off on the southbound exit ramp, all the traffic coming back up will be coming back up to the stoplights to get back on. And I know the DOT has already done a preliminary study on that interchange because the pilot truck stop sits at the intersection of Knox Road and Mount Hope Church Road. So it is actually too close to the interstate. When it was Wilco Hess, we did not have the influx of traffic from East Coast to West Coast truck traffic because the pilot is part of a national fuel chain. So we're getting customers from Oregon, Seattle, all the way to the West Coast. They actually come in our lot and turn around. So I literally have to put a pickup truck in my driveway to keep the truck traffic from turning around in my driveway. And I've actually had to call the sheriff department out multiple times to actually have people removed from my property because they'll stop and park in the middle of the night. So Knox Road directly across from it does impact that, but as long as it's warehousing of that size magnitude that she's talking about, those trucks will come in to pick up distribution goods from a major manufacturer and they'll exit. And that'll be fine, just as long as we don't have trucks coming on and off the interstate 24/7. But you have to have an exit in to have a truck stop. And Publix sure has, and I welcome Publix, but Publix has brought an influx of business to that part of the world, not to mention what's going to happen when Carroll actually develops all the property down Knox Road. That's still coming in the future, and we're prepared for that when it happens, just the same. You just don't want the East Coast to West Coast truck traffic. And we don't want to look at it every day, even though we need trucks, because it moves America.
So,
But I'm in
Thank you.
favor for it.
But-
Madam Mayor, I move to close the public hearing.
You
second,
may. Who's second?
Move approval of this item. Or, yeah, Mary Kay had it already.
I made the motion to approve earlier.
Second.
Does it
You have to
require?
close the public hearing.
No findings of fact.
All right. It's been moved and a second to
A quick point of clarification, this is a rezoning request, so we do need the statement of consistency.
we need a statement.
I can put it up on the screen if you need me to. Actually, can you switch the input for me, please?
Go
It
ahead.
may take just a second.
Just waiting for the screen.
You moved this. Who seconded? Okay,
Mrs. Hoffman.
Ms. Hall.
It's on the screen now.
The Greensboro City Council believed that its action to approve the rezoning request for the property identified as a portion of 5440 Millstream Road from BP Business Park to CDLI Conditional District Light Industrial to be consistent with the adopted GSO 2040 comprehensive plan and considers the action taken to be reasonable and in the public interest for the following reasons. The request is consistent with the comprehensive plan's future built form map and future land use map. The proposed CDLI zoning district as conditioned permits uses which fit the context of surrounding areas and limits negative impacts on the adjacent properties. The request is reasonable due to the size, physical conditions, and other attributes of the area. It will benefit the property owner and surrounding community, and approval is in the public interest.
All right, thank you. Councilwoman Hoffman. Councilwoman Thurn.
Yes.
I'm a yes. Abuzawader.
Yes.
Holston.
Yes.
Matheny. Hightower.
Yeah,
That passes 7-0. And if you haven't voted on this computer vote. All righty, we are now at the general business agenda and I'll recognize you, Councilwoman Abuzawader.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I have a request, if we could please, to move up item I7, which is a resolution to approve up to a $5 million investment in the Greensboro Preservation Loan Fund prior to the other items.
Council, what's your pleasure? Okay,
is there any reason, does it impact anything?
I just received a request. I don't think it's anything out of the norm.
No, I didn't say it was out of norm. I just wondered, I didn't know if it was related to the item.
No, not at all. Just, I was asked if we could just do that, just personal prerogative. If so.
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Okay, that passes 7-0. I7, we will take first, which is a resolution to approve up to $5 million investment in the Greensboro Preservation Loan Fund. We have a speaker?
Yes.
And I think we have two speakers on that, actually.
Madam Mayor Pro Tem, we heard this presentation, I think it was October 10th. Is there anything new, Mr. Thomas?
Mr. Matheny, I'd like for the public to hear it, though.
Okay.
Thank you. I think we have, are you Michael? Marcus, I'm sorry. Michael is your name, right?
It's Marcus Thomas, Senior
They
Program
put
Officer.
Michael on here. I'm sorry, I can't read that good. So anyway, Marcus, and then we have Cameron Cook, who's gonna speak on this. All right. Go right ahead, Marcus.
Thank you. Marcus Thomas, Senior Program Officer at the Community Foundation of Greater Greensboro. Thank you for this time this evening. As you guys heard during the work session, this will be a public-private fund that's leveraging capital to provide below market interest rate loans to for-profit and nonprofit developers to preserve our existing multifamily housing stock and to construct a new multifamily housing stock with a intentional effort with a focus around the East Greensboro corridor, but as well as the entire city of Greensboro with our affordable housing stock. As I shared with you during the last work session, this fund will preserve affordability while improving housing quality. The fund will preserve anywhere from 900 to 1,100 units in Greensboro, primarily serving those in the 30 to 60% AMI range. And the fund will also support the construction of new multifamily affordable housing structures. When I presented at the time, we had $20,025,000 committed towards the fund. I am pleased to announce that one of our financial partners actually increased their commitment. So we're currently at $22,025,000. So we're roughly just a little under $10 million towards the recommended goal of $32.5 million.
Thank you. Any questions?
Keep going.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Marcus.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Cook, Mr. Cameron Cook.
The Honorable
Madam Mayor, 10 members of the council, I'll be brief. Just fully support this item. This is dealing with the issue of affordable housing, and there are many, many issues. Our permitting process, things like that. I just encourage you to try to find more money to go to help those who are less fortunate than we are. And I know you're looking at your rescue fund allocations and things of that nature. So I encourage you to keep this in mind. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good to see you.
Nice to see you too.
You want to speak?
I think we confused you a little bit. Madam Mayor Pro Tem, Greensboro City Council members. My name is Mike Johnson. I'm a member of the Affordable Housing Coalition here in Greensboro. And I want to thank you for this opportunity to speak to you in favor of Resolution 1135. This resolution, when passed, will assist the weakest among us, the children who are our future. It will help to provide affordable, safe, healthy, and permanent housing for these children. When you submit your I vote on this, I wish you to close your eyes for a moment and envision the smiling face of a mother holding the hands of her children at a front door as they enter their first permanent home. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Okay. I think those were all of the speakers I had on that item.
Move the item.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Ms. Hoffman,
Yes.
Stern,
Yes.
I'm a yes. Abuzawader,
Yes.
Holston, Matheny, Holston,
Yes.
Hightower. I just like to mess with the two of you. Hightower,
I've been called quite a bit, yes.
Hightower.
Yeah,
Oh, thank you. It's 7-0 is passes 7-0. All right, we're gonna take the first item is a resolution establishing a home repair GSO program. We have a speaker for that?
Good evening, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. While setting up, I want to take an opportunity just to introduce the item along with Cindy Blue, who's our Assistant Director of Housing and Strategy. The Housing GSO 10-year affordable housing plan identified a need for homeowner housing repair resources. And so the city has had a long-standing rehab program, which has provided loans for comprehensive rehabilitation. And so many of our low-income homeowners were denied access for a variety of different reasons based on the program guidelines. So in order to provide expanded service and to better meet those needs, this particular program will allow us to do that. So I'm going to turn it over to Cindy Blue to give more background and details and provide answers to questions that you may have.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. This is an abbreviated version of the presentation that we provided to you at the October, I believe the 27th council meeting. As Nasha has said, the city has operated a comprehensive rehabilitation program for a very long time. We've operated lead safe housing programs and a variety of other repair and rehab programs. The Housing Greensboro Plan did recommend that we institute a home repair program, which is a direction that many communities across the country are moving due to the barriers that are inherent in loan-based comprehensive rehabilitation programs. So the home repair GSO program is really focused on those major system failures. It remediates dangerous conditions. It can provide additional accessibility to low-income homeowners. It's really getting ahead of the issues that can lead to comprehensive rehabilitation by stopping the deterioration before it gets out of control. It also has been designed to work well with our repair repair partners in the community, organizations such as Piedmont Triad Regional Council, Community Housing Solutions, and just recently Duke Energy has been talking to us about the potential for a program that will serve low-income folks with very high energy bills. It can increase homeowners' eligibility for those other programs because quite often, particularly for Piedmont Triad Regional Council, if there is a hole in the roof or some other structural issue going on with the home, the homeowner is not eligible for the services from the weatherization programs. It also better utilizes our staff capacity and increases the number of homeowners that we can serve. Currently, a single rehab inspector can process about 20 to 25 cases of comprehensive rehab, and that includes everything from the initial inspections, the work write-ups, the inspections, and the construction monitoring. In this role, we would be working with our partners and we would be focusing much more on that monitoring role where we are not doing all of those initial steps. We are going out and making sure that everything meets our program standards, as well as most of these items in these types of repair programs are going to be trades related. And so they will also be getting inspections from the city's building inspections department. The program is designed to be a grant award to a nonprofit agency, and the services are provided as a grant to the homeowner. The homeowners are eligible for one repair grant in a 10-year period in order to be able to maximize the number of folks that we can serve. The limits are projected as up to $20,000 and up to 3 eligible systems, which should cover the majority of the types of cases that we anticipate seeing. No approved homes would be left with any of the major code violations that are called out in our minimum housing standards language in our codes. And all approved homes would receive the basic safety installations of smoke and fire detectors, visible address numbers, and ground fault interrupter circuits near water sources. These are some of the types of eligible systems repairs and examples. These are primarily structural or trades related or safety related, such as fire safety and flood danger mitigation. Where we are right now is we are hiring a neighborhood development improvements coordinator. That is a position that would be over this program. We are also developing the neighborhood software application portal, which would allow both homeowners to apply online as well as the city and its partners to be able to work through those cases, similar to the way we have been able to do it through the emergency rental assistance program and the partners that we worked with in the community. We are also going to be testing the implementation of the program guidelines, making sure that we've got everything accounted for. And when we're ready to go in the early, we project probably February of next year, issuing the request for proposals to our community partners to invite them to submit proposals. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
I just have a suggestion.
All right.
I love this. Let me first say that. We have over 110 or more different ethnic groups. If we could find out the 5 top ethnic groups in terms of population, I would like to suggest that we what is available to them in their language, and to use channel 13, I think it is, to put it on so that more people will know what we're offering. I think it's a fabulous idea and much needed.
Thank you, Ms.
Madam Mayor Pro Tem, I pushed my buttons. I don't know if you can see me on the screen.
Say what?
I pushed my button to speak, so I don't know if you can see me.
But I
on-
saw your head. Go ahead.
Oh, my head, okay. I just have a quick question for you. I'm glad to see you revising the housing program, but the old one you've put on hold. I guess until we approve this, how soon before you begin to implement and replace the old one with these new requirements?
Next week, our inspector's ready to begin. We've got about 40 names on the list, some of which were already approved for rehab and went into a hold status because they
Right.
would prefer to move forward as a grant program. So he'll be revising those scopes of work and we will be bidding them out this year.
Okay. The only other thing I would strongly suggest is that you make sure you inspect the status of the work as you move along. How often are you checking on that, when the contract is gonna go out,
A
when
minimum
he's
of weekly.
working, and then where the progress is, where he's at in the progress process.
Mhm.
What do you have built in for that?
Oh,
To check on that process?
We are at a minimum of weekly, checking on the jobs that are in progress.
Okay, do you communicate with? And I say this because, and I'm full transparency, there have been some concerns and just this week, with some that don't feel they were communicated with, during this process, and the contractor had to leave the job and go somewhere else, for another job, and they didn't know what to do.
Mhm.
So how often are we making sure we communicate with the home buyer?
Yes, ma'am. We are in pretty constant communication with both the home buyers and the contractors. That was a bit of an odd situation. And I believe that we sent information to the city manager's office to provide to you for answers to your questions that you posed.
Right, yeah, you did, but I just want to make sure it's built into,
Yes, ma'am.
the process, moving forward, because I imagine many people are going to be real interested now that it's a grant,
Mhm.
and that need help. So I'm glad to see you. Now, just want to make sure I understand. Say if they got lead windows and heat, you can still do both if they fall up under the 20.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right, perfect.
Councilwoman Abuzawa,
I believe Mr. Holston was first.
Mr. Holston, go right ahead.
Thank you. And I do like the idea of having it in a multilingual, lingual on the GTN network. Just a quick question for you. Is the work that is being done by the providers, is it warranted or guaranteed or in any such way, or is it just through the is it warranted or guaranteed through the city or through this program, or is it just by the work of the providing contractor?
We require a 1-year warranty on the contractor work that is done through our programs. So it's a 1-year look back to see and make sure that the work is satisfactory and that there have been no issues.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. I'm really, really thrilled that this is being considered this evening. As you know, there are some wonderful weatherization programs. I represent council on the Piedmont Triad Regional Council, and wonderful weatherization programs around the area. I have seen many times when someone has, as you were talking about, a roof that leaks and the weatherization couldn't be done because the roof needed to be repaired first. So many things, leaking water heaters, subflooring that it's already been damaged. This just absolutely thrills me that those things can be done, and then the other items can be done as well. So I want to thank you all for your hard work.
Thank you.
Okay. I just have one other quick question. Income requirements. You say up to 60?
60% of area median income, yes.
So for most people who don't understand, up to 60, generally, what does that equate to in dollars?
About $35,000.
Okay. So anybody making over that. Do we have a way to have other alternative assistance though? I've gotten a call about a roof and obviously they're not going to qualify, but
Are you looking for something at a higher income level than that?
yeah, afraid so. Senior, still retired, but
Yeah, the 60% income limit was chosen because 2 seniors who may have worked throughout their lives and are living on Social Security, quite often that pushes them a little above that 50% very median income. And so 60% would allow them to still participate.
okay, have we considered any other type of program? I know the down payment assistance was looking at 60 to 80 or 80 to 120, but any other type of repair program, and it may not be a forgivable type, but I wonder if we could explore something along that line for that individual who may fall just a little bit over the 60.
We can look into it for you.
Yeah, because that 60 is 35,000, so really is not a whole lot. I mean, you really are at a poverty level, even at 35,000. So I'd be interested to know what that would look like.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, I need a motion.
I'd like to move the item.
Second.
Second, okay, it's been moved in second. Council, please vote. Hoffman. Turner.
Yes.
I'm a yes. Abuza Wade. Matheny. Holston.
Yes.
Hightower.
Yes.
And that passes 7-0. Great program. Thank you. I2 is an ordinance amending chapter 19 of the Greensboro Code of Ordinances with respect to the Greensboro Bryan Park Golf Commission.
Move the item.
Second.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's moved in second, Hightower and Thurm. Please vote. Hoffman. Thurm.
Yes.
I'm a yes. Abuza Wade.
Yes.
Husseini. Alston.
Yes.
Hightower.
Yes.
And that passes 7-0. I don't have any speakers on the next one, I don't think.
Move the item.
As a resolution approving contract in the amount of $1,299,000 with HDR Engineering of the Carolinas, Inc. for professional services for the water booster station, instrumentation and control, and supervisory control and data acquisition improvement.
Second.
Second. All right. Council, please vote. Hoffman. Thurm. I'm a yes. Abuza Wade.
Yes.
Matheny.
Yes.
Alston.
Yes.
Hightower.
Yes.
And that passes 7-0. I4 is a resolution approving updates to the water and sewer extension policy outside the city corporate limits effective January 1, 2023.
Move the item.
Second.
It's been moved in second. Council, please vote. Hoffman. Thurm.
Yes.
I'm a yes. Abuza Wade.
Yes.
Matheny. Alston.
Yes.
Hightower.
Yes.
That passes 7-0. I5 is a resolution authorizing renewal contract 2023-6887 in the amount of $2,341,404 with the Standard Life Insurance Company. And item I6 is a resolution to authorize contract to Symetra Insurance Company for stop loss insurance protection for medical claims over $350,000.
Move the item.
Let's see you, Thurm.
Second.
Okay. Council, please vote. Hoffman. Thurm.
Yes.
I'm yes. Abuza Wade.
Yes.
Matheny. Holston.
Yes.
Hightower.
Yes.
And that passes 7-0.
Mayor Pro Tem, I have a question or two on items I6 before. you move
I6, the resolution to authorize contract, that one. You have a question?
Yeah, I was looking it over and I noticed, so I just have a question around, the company not being one that's kind of local, and I know this came up a few years ago about, local presence of certain medical companies or insurance companies. So just what exactly is going to be their actual purpose?
Councilmember Hightower, Symetra is headquartered on the West Coast, but they do have a Charlotte office, and it's the Charlotte office that we'll be interacting with if council approves the contract.
So we'll be able to file the claims right to Charlotte.
Correct.
Okay. Okay, I was just wondering how we got there and, over anybody else. Did anybody else apply for this?
We had two responsive bids. Symetra was considerably lower than the other bidder, and it's primarily driving our recommendation tonight.
So basically it's a low bid. Not bad.
It's savings of about almost $300,000 to our health insurance fund.
Oh, that's carpet money right there, isn't it? All right. Thank you. I just wanted to make sure. Thank you very much.
Move the item.
Second.
Council, please vote. Hoffman. Stern,
Yes.
I'm a yes. Abuzawader,
Yes.
Zach. You,
Yes.
Sharon.
Yeah.
It passes 7-0. I-8, and we have some speakers on I-9. And so as soon as I read it, I'll have the speakers come up. I-8, resolution authorizing to contract in the amount of $414,743 for winter emergency shelter activities with Greensboro Urban Ministry. And item 19 is a resolution authorizing to contract in the amount of $484,000 with winter emergencies shelter activities with the Interactive Resource Center. The people that I have down to speak on item I-9 is Scott Jones. I have Philip Marsh. I have Emma Holland. I have Mike Thielen. If you're here and you want to speak, this is the time. Just give us your name.
Good evening, Scott Jones, Director for Tiny House Community Development. I hope that this council will take seriously the situation with our homeless community, our friends experiencing homelessness. We don't need to keep putting Band-Aids on serious situations regarding homelessness. Last year at the Regency, there were over 78 calls. 1 death, prostitution, assaults, drugs, they're all public record, and we have those records from incidents that happened in a less than 4-month period. Situations where people wouldn't leave in April had to be taken to court, according to the former owner or possibly the owner of the Regency Inn right now, unless it switched hands as of yet. That's the reason he didn't want to take on the task of running the winter shelter again. This is a serious amount of money that you're getting ready to approve for a short period of time for winter shelter. I want our friends experiencing homelessness to have a place to stay dry and warm and fed. But last year at the Regency Inn, our street outreach specialists were denied access to our clients who we were working with, not only for personal documents, but housing. And the same thing is getting ready to happen again. Access for agencies who are working with these ladies and men that are experiencing homelessness on a daily basis will be denied. You're getting ready to basically upend of what organizations are working on right now. COC members of the COC who have these clients are going to lose access to them. You don't want to replicate services, but that's exactly what you're going to do, because these agencies, Greensboro Urban Ministries and the Interactive Resource Center, are going to replicate and duplicate services that are already being provided to these clients. That's a lot of cases of individuals that experienced bad situations at the Regency Inn last year. We know this because we built personal rapport with each and every one of them. Every Saturday we serve breakfast. We used to serve breakfast at the parking deck. Thank you, city manager. Thank you, attorney, for stopping us from being in the parking deck, but you will not stop us from feeding on Saturdays. I took the course, Safe Plate, so that I can make sure that we're serving our clients safely. I know my time's about to run out, but I hope you dig into this budget. Make sure that the COC members have access to their clients.
Hello, my name is Emma Holland. I'm speaking on I-9. I want to bring your attention to the public internal City of Greensboro audits on the city website concerning the IRC day and winter shelter programs during the time of Michelle Kennedy's leadership. There are multiple concerns listed in letters between the city and the IRC pertaining to late reporting, lack of client information privacy that led to the audit department to write multiple letters recommending that these programs not be considered for future funding opportunities. I do feel like this is something that should be taken into consideration since Ms. Kennedy is now the one making recommendations for funding to her previous agency, which should be a conflict of interest, and assuring you that monitoring is sufficient. Client data, if ever submitted, was not properly tracked and was even 1 year contracted out to a third party without city consent. HMIS was not properly used or a proper reflection of the numbers reported, nor were client records maintained for the required 7 years. Next, I would like to bring attention to the fact that the doorway project and safe parking projects are not listed for funding until 2023. I know we all witnessed how cold and miserable it was outside today. It will only get worse later November and December. This proposal was rushed, even though it won't even be implemented until next year. Several of you even admitted that this process was rushed. Again, winter happens every year and you should have been better prepared. I have had many of my houseless friends reach out in hopes that I have answers on what the city will be doing to help them this winter. Yet all I can tell them to do is wait, even though the weather is already freezing. Do you know how hard it is to hold a job, make doctor's appointments, and function while you're just trying to survive the night? No one can thrive or succeed until their basic needs are met. So maybe you all can be the ones to go out to those sleeping in under 32-degree weather on the concrete and explain to them why you weren't better prepared.
The name is Philip Marsh. I represent GSO Lab Foundation, which is a conglomerate of businesses that have come together to kind of keep an eye on some of these issues surrounding homelessness that affects businesses around some of these centers. And I just wanted to kind of bring to the council's attention, it was very concerning when we looked at one piece of information with regards to this matter, I-9 on your agenda, that a RFP was issued after 10 days. Furthermore, when the young woman here just spoke before me, if these things aren't being implemented into 2023, wintertime, I don't understand the rush for why these services of security, along with the other services that the IRC would provide, is being rolled out like this. I know personally, dealing with the IRC and some of their policies before, which are understandable because that's how they run their facility, that they do not believe in having security or public safety around their facilities because they feel that that is an infringement on their clients. We in the surrounding community do not feel like that. The same way that this gentleman discussed the litany of offenses that have occurred at the Regency site. I can also tell you that someone was raped on our property directly across the street from the IRC. We have to call the police almost every day because the IRC also feels that if the incidents are not occurring on their property, it is not their concern. That is not a way to conduct yourselves in a community environment. And these things need to seriously be taken into consideration when you're considering this. And maybe if we had an RFP that was opened up for past 10 days, at a bare minimum 30 days, we may be able to get more service providers to could do a better job on some of the situations that these communities that we are now moving into to further expand these services will not have to deal with some of these same things, as well as getting input from the immediate community that will have to deal with these residual incidents that occur around trying to assist our homeless brothers and sisters that need our assistance. Again, I want to make sure that this is abundantly clear. There are some issues with regards to public safety and security around these facilities. And at a bare minimum, these need to be further mapped out so that you understand, you know, what the city is getting involved with as this moves forward and at somewhat of an accelerated pace that it seems to be taking. Thank you very much.
Any other speakers? Mr. Manager, I would really like to know more, go in depth and know more about these issues that I'm hearing. because I haven't heard. I've heard some, but I don't know both if there are two sides to this and what those sides are and et cetera. I don't want to vote on this tonight. Personally, I will not. Because I need more information and more clarity. That's my personal.
Mayor
So
Pro-
I just would like to know specifics, what you're concerned with. Because there are a couple of things that were brought up. One is the funding seems to show 2023. Secondly, that the procurement period was not long enough. I think those are two things that I heard.
And
from
I'm
the speakers.
concerned about the allegations of how people were treated at the Regency. I'm concerned about the relationship between the IRC and the neighboring businesses, what the ramifications of those that is. I have a number of concerns.
Okay, I will yield. Maybe we want to respond to those first.
Sure. So the first thing I would point out is that the 10-day RFP process is pretty standard for us. Our RFP process typically either runs 10 days or 15 days. So that is a normal timing for our processes. As it relates to the 2023 fiscal year, this is the 2023 fiscal year. A fiscal year ends at the end of a fiscal year. So we are currently in the 2023 fiscal year. As it relates to questions around Regency last year, I don't think anybody would say that it was not a tough year. That was a property that was in pretty extensive state of community-based issues. When White Flag Shelter started there were a number of folks who had been temporarily living at the Regency before it transitioned to emergency shelter who were still there that we were working to get relocated. And there absolutely were police calls. There was a death that was a natural death that could have happened at any time, at any point. The majority of the calls that we received last year at the Regency had to do with holdover residents who had been staying at it when it was a hotel, not shelter residents who were there for shelter stay. And that is just a natural progression of transitioning from a kind of by the day hotel to a shelter operation. We didn't want to displace those folks, so we were working on rehousing them. And there certainly were some police interactions during that time. As it relates to questions about, I think Mr. Marsh brought up issues that happened on property that he manages on Washington Street. The IRC, and really no other agency, has the ability to police or monitor individuals who are not within their property. They don't have the legal ability to do that. It's not within any of their funding sources or any of our other partner agencies' funding sources. As it relates to some of the concerns that Mr. Jones brought up from tiny homes, we received 32 referrals from tiny houses for the Regency program this year. So I was surprised to hear those concerns since he referred 32 individuals for this program.
Yes. Ms. Hightower and Ms. Bruce-Wade.
So, thank you. I pushed my green button multiple times. See it right here? How about you come down here and look at it? See it right there?
Did I do that right? Okay, we're gonna go with Mr. Bruce-Wade, Zach. I don't have that. Mine's not coming up. Tammy and Sharon. That's the way it came up. I don't have that on mine.
Hugh's
So,
on there too.
Go right ahead.
Were you wanting to speak, Hugh?
No.
Okay, so I'll let Sharon go. She wants to go first.
Well, go ahead. Cause I've been down here raising my hand, but I had pressed my button before a couple times. but-
It's not
Mine's
showing
not
that it
working
did.
at all.
Okay, so
Okay.
But go ahead.
I don't really have a question, more of a comment. Maybe it is a question. Isn't this pretty time sensitive since we are in winter already?
This is incredibly time sensitive. This is not something that's new or came up at the 11th hour. We're looking for our first White Flag night to happen this week. So time is of the essence as it relates to this. And I'd also offer up, we have a presentation prepared that Caitlin's going to give in a minute. And that may shed some light on some of the questions that other council members have. That may be a better way to go about it and then follow up with questions following that.
Sure, I'd like to see that, Madam Mayor Pro Tem.
Okay.
Repeat that.
Zach?
Sure.
I was saying
Okay.
Caitlin is going to give our presentation on this and it may answer some questions. Might make better sense to ask questions after if you would like.
Sure.
Okay.
Zach? Tammy? Sharon?
Mhm.
You all right with me?
So I'm just going to invite
Yeah.
Caitlin Bowers up. She's the division manager for that section.
Thank you. I mean, and
Department.
just to be clear, you said we have a white flag coming up and we will definitely respond to that, not wait till 2023.
Well, 2023 from a fiscal year standpoint. So yeah, we'll be operating this week.
We in 2022, but that doesn't mean we don't respond now.
Responding right
I
now.
want the public to understand that.
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
Good evening, Caitlin Bowers. So this is the outline of winter emergency shelter programs for fiscal year 22-23, which starts July 1, 2022, runs through June 30th, 2023. And this is covering 2 winter shelter service contracts. The winter emergency shelter programs and partnerships with Greensboro Urban Ministry and their Interactive Resource Center for White Flag, Hotel Assistance, and the Regency Inn are a continuation of last year. White Flag alone has been operated by the Interactive Resource Center since 2014. The 2 new programs for 2022 are the Doorway Project and Safe Parking Initiative. The Housing and Neighborhood Development Department issued that request for proposals for these 2 new programs, and interested applicants were given those 10 days to submit applications as standard for our department. The Safe Parking Initiative and the Doorway Project received 1 application each, both submitted by the Interactive Resource Center. A notice of the RFP was emailed directly to city-funded partners, included in the COC newsletter, announced at a COC membership meeting, and was posted on the Housing and Neighborhood Development webpage. The first item, I-8, is authorizing a contract for winter emergency shelter activities with Greensboro Urban Ministry to provide non-congregate care housing options for those sleeping outdoors. The activities being the Regency Inn, the cost of operations for homeless individuals, and hotel assistance cost of services for homeless families. And that contract for Greensboro Urban Ministry totaling $414,743. The second item, I-9, is authorizing a contract for winter emergency shelter activities with the Interactive Resource Center to provide non-congregate care options for those sleeping outdoors, including the 2 new programs, the Safe Parking Initiative and the Doorway Project. Regency Inn Winter Shelter, in partnership with Greensboro Urban Ministry, the IRC activities will include case management and security. Similarly, the IRC will provide case management and security for the Safe Parking Initiative and the Doorway Project. Lastly, IRC will provide the White Flag operations.
Thank you. I'm much clearer. Thank you. Is anybody else that needed?
I don't.
I'm sorry, there were questions. There are people.
Are you finished?
I'm finished. Thank you.
Oh, okay. I didn't think she was finished.
Go ahead. Tammy.
Well, Mary Kay and Zach were
Yeah,
before me. so-
yes, thank you. That answered a lot of the questions that I would have had. So I think that's very important that we saw that presentation. I would like to clarify that last year it was basically a different process, correct? And yeah, I see Michelle nodding yes. Everything, if I could get Michelle back up for a second. Yes, I'm sorry, Kate.
Yeah, last year was a different process. We were getting this thing off the ground, essentially building the bike as we were riding it. So this year has been more in line with kind of traditional processes for RFP processes for getting these programs structured and all of those things.
And I just want to clarify, and it was in the presentation, but there were no other applications, correct?
So we put this application out for 10 days, which again is in line with our typical application process. Liz announced it in a COC membership meeting. We sent an email to every single COC partner. We had conversations with Guilford County Department of Social Services and the social workers from the Guilford County school system prior to releasing the RFP. So we couldn't have thrown the net any wider, and we only received one application.
Thank you. That helps.
Zach.
Thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. So I'm gonna start with going back to a question that we had at October 10th, which goes in line with a litany of questions I'll have for you. Where are we with working with the existing shelters and understanding their current occupancy? We mentioned that we saw some video of an unsheltered person walking in with empty beds. You mentioned that some shelters were running less than 50% capacity. Where are we with that?
So we are still essentially in the same place that we are. We don't have the ability to mandate those shelters to operate at a higher level of capacity without a CDC recommendation change or a HUD recommendation change. And neither of those things has come down the pipe to this point. Right now, the information is that we're seeing another upsurge in COVID numbers. So those numbers on decreased bed counts is staying in effect. And that is the reason that most of those shelters are still operating at lower capacity.
Did you send a letter or anything on behalf of the city asking them to reconsider and being open and serving more people?
We have not sent a letter, but we have had conversations with all of our shelter providers that we provide funding to related to that. And the answer is pretty consistent that they follow the guidance from the CDC and from HUD, which is what they follow all the time. And that guidance has not changed to move them back to full capacity at this time.
So can you resend me or us the list of shelters that the city of Greensboro funds?
Sure.
And their response? Because I think we should consider our funding opportunities if they're not listening to our city staff, or our city recommendations on serving more people. And I find it, I wrote this down 3 times. We all talk about our friends experiencing homelessness. Our brothers and sisters experience homelessness. Yet we're not forcing people to actually help the friends and brothers and sisters experiencing homelessness. So I got a problem with those folks that are supposed to be helping, that are declining our request to help more people. And as far as referring to the COVID, I know a couple people, maybe sitting to my right, that help with COVID vaccinations. I just got mine a couple of weeks ago. What can we do? Hopefully you in neighborhood development are setting up shop and helping folks get the COVID boosters as you're walking them into the front door of these shelters. Because I think it's unacceptable that we're having to rush some things when we have capacity in our shelters. So the next follow-up question is, how many beds do we know? And I think it would be great for all of council to know how many beds are available and how many beds will actually be made available from the organizations that have beds that folks could sleep on.
How many, are you asking current shelter bed availability?
So, but I want to say, what is the maximum we could house? And then what is each individual organization actually allowing to house?
I can follow up with that
Yeah.
information.
I don't expect you to know right now. So on the request for I.1, I8, should that not stay up to 414,743? Because we don't know what actually is going to be spent. We don't know weather patterns. I remember one year it was cold. One year in December, we had record heats. Like, how is it such a specific number when we don't know what's going to be needed?
As it relates to the $414,000 and
I mean, 414,743 is a pretty accurate, specific number. But if we're allocating today, what we don't know is gonna be used, shouldn't it state up to?
So the Regency numbers we know will be used. Those are hard numbers based on the number of days that services will be provided on that site. The remaining for hotel assistance for winter shelter is $100,000, and that funding is about the average of what we spent last year and what we anticipate will be spent this year. The only one that would have any flex in it are the hotel assistance numbers related to families needing shelter in motels.
Sounds like you're not feeling too well. I'm sorry about that.
So, you were asking about COVID. I'm vaccinated and boosted and on the recovery end of that myself. So
For the funds that we're talking about today, the 414, I'm focused on 1.8, and then I'll get to 1.9. So we've got $596,000 to purchase these temporary homes, $105,000 for the bathrooms. Are we renting or purchasing those bathrooms?
we are renting bathroom facilities. We're not purchasing bathrooms for
Did
this.
you cost out what it would be to purchase, like the ones that, like the golf tournament, the Wyndham Championship are really nice, air conditioned, heated? I mean, it seems like might make sense to purchase them if that's the direction this council wants to go.
That would be fine if that's the direction council wants to
Well,
go.
I'm asking, did we consider that when you're spending $110,000 to rent something? I'm curious, what was it compared to? Did we cost out to buy?
We have cost the price for purchasing the shelter facilities that are bathroom facilities. It was cheaper for us to rent them than to use those. I will have to look back to see if we did a price check on the purchase or rental of the kind of trailer type thing you're talking about. I
Yeah.
believe that we did. I just don't have it in front of me.
I would love to see that as soon as possible, because again, to me, 10 days is not sufficient on an RFP. Period. It's not. Only having one response, usually I hear from this council that we don't accept. If it just gets one response, we go back out. So that's concerning. The amount of money we're spending on bathrooms, renting versus purchasing, that's concerning. You got 15,000, 84,000 security at $100,000 on on-site management. So we're spending $790,000 in addition to the funding, each individual that we're paying per month for partnership homes, the money that, and we'll get to the housing, the pallet housing and the parking thing too. So on this urban ministry, what exactly, because we're talking about overlap a lot. When I participated in some of these homeless task force meetings, we have all these COC organizations. You say we got one application, but Greensboro Urban Ministry is going to be providing something. What is Greensboro Urban Ministry providing as it relates to 1.8?
Greensboro Urban Ministry and the IRC are working in partnership on the Regency site. Greensboro Urban Ministry individually is providing motel stays for families. So they are handling the family portion of our.
So they're having
Regency.
family before families at the Regency Inn.
No, there will not be families at the Regency Inn. The families are situated into other hotel locations, and that largely has to do with the acuity of folks that we're dealing with. And I can break down through each project if that makes sense for you, or if that would be helpful.
Yeah, I mean, if we're talking about investing $500,000 in this, $500,000 in another one, I kind of want to know what we're getting the bang for a buck. Also, if we're spending this much energy and effort in trying to help our friends and brothers and sisters homeless, I'm extremely disappointed in the lack of what we accomplished through the Regency Inn. I mean, it's been sitting empty. And I think that we're rushing the pallet homes. Haven't had conversations. I know there's a white paper from the DOI, Department of Insurance. I don't think that's accessible, but have you sent any money to buy these pallet homes yet?
We haven't made any purchase.
No purchase.
Right? We haven't.
So
made
if
any
you were to
purchase.
purchase it today, when would the pallet homes even come in?
It would be roughly 3 weeks,
So, and then how long does it take to put them up?
less than a day.
Well, that's scary as hell. Put up a house in less than a day.
Show is.
Again, these are not houses. These are temporary.
That's my point.
That's scary.
That's
No.
exactly my point on the concern that I had for our brothers and sisters and our friends. And quite frankly, I heard Mr. Manager say last night, would you feed your family in a parking deck? Would you take your kids down to a parking deck with the fumes and the cars and the traffic? I was there for a minute and a half, but you made terrific points. So I'm still confused about the overlap between Greensboro Ministry and the IRC and Partnership Homes. I have yet to understand why we need Partnership Homes if we're spending so much investment on the other two entities. And as far as mowing the grass, if that's the case, then Field Ops or something could probably do that for a heck of a lot less money than what we're paying Partnership Homes. The Safe Parking Project. When this was presented October 10th, it was stated as a pilot program. Yet in this document, it says it's stating a year round. So what happened?
So.
By the way, I appreciate the proposal that you shared. But that was the same proposal that was in our document, wasn't it?
Yes, it should have
Yeah.
been.
So again, I
So the-
studied this extensively before I get here. So I need help, like, is it a pilot program? Is it a year-round operation?
So it is a pilot program in terms of the demand that is needed in terms of safe parking. We started at a number that we know is needed. It may increase in size or units necessary for folks. Safe parking is intended to be a year-round program, and the breakdown for cost of services for safe parking, it'll serve an average of 50 individuals per night. It won't serve less than 35. It breaks down to a total cost in a year of $3,680 per person. So $10.08 per night to provide a safe location for folks who are staying in cars.
That's if, but last time it was $290,000 for the safe parking program for a pilot that ends in March.
It
So
never
now
was intended to end in March, and it was $184,000 and continues to be that number.
Actually, I have it right here from your October 5th menu. If you add $184,000, but you added $105,000 for bathroom costs. So in actuality, it would be $290,471.
Safe parking and the pilot program will be located on the same site, so we were able to absorb that cost and not have to use that additional $100,000.
So the safe parking, then why, so we can save the bathroom costs and we could save case management costs and we can save security costs. So safe parking shouldn't cost us a dime. Based on what you just said, if we're sharing costs at the Regency Inn, we don't need to hire bathrooms, we don't need to hire security, we already got there, and we don't need case management because we have Partnership Homes, we have Regency, we have GOM and we have IRC.
Safe parking will not be located at the Regency Inn. It will be located in District 4.
Yeah, I think the confusion is that they're located in the same place. No, they're not. So I think we're
so where are they
mixing
gonna do
two
the
things
bathroom?
together.
There is a bathroom facility already on site.
Okay. Well, obviously, we haven't known where it's gonna be, and I still don't know an address of where it's gonna be. I hope that it's properly zoned.
I think
Zach, it's a Parks and Recreation facility.
Is it properly zoned?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, it is.
And I'll just jump in there quickly because of the sensitivity and the vulnerability of the residents. It's important to keep the address private rather than make it public. But we do know it's going to be in District 4. I'm just worried about being specific about that location. We've made outreach to residents. We've reached out to them who are in the neighborhood, but I'm just worried about for their safety and
We
where.
probably should have had a closed session meeting a long time ago on that,
We need.
instead of rushing it in and allowing council to get some edification
That
on
would
how this
help
plan
me.
is going. Versus having everything just thrown at us in public within a month.
But I
So-
think council wanted to take action on this, knowing that winter was coming. But not only that, also because of the weather situation in Florida. I think there was a push to quickly, if you are going to do something, do it sooner than later. So obviously, if we had time, yes, Councilmember Matheny, obviously we should have done that.
So there's two more on I-8. One would be on the safe parking. It is my understanding that some of our big box stores, including Walmart, have had allowed safe parking on their property. And it didn't cost the city $184,500. Why is it now a good idea for us to take this over versus continuing to work with those private organizations?
Many of those locations no longer offer that as an option. And many of them also, while they offer that to things like RVs, have not been particularly friendly to people experiencing homelessness who are living in standard vehicles.
Well, I'd be interested to see that. On the 1.8, this is my last question on that, is I found it very interesting about food accommodations. Sorry, I'm in that middle age of being able to see some things and not be able to see all of them. But if I found it interesting that food arrangements are confirmed. If we can arrange food arrangements properly throughout the winter, why can't we arrange food properly throughout the year?
The food arrangements that are in place only apply to Regency Inn. And the reason that we are providing those food services at Regency are because of the 84 people that partner agencies, and the majority of the referrals that we got for Regency Inn came from the street outreach programs that are operational within the COC, Partners Ending Homelessness and Tiny Homes. Of those 84 people, to give you some example of the types of health issues that folks who will be at Regency this winter have, and these are real individuals. We have cancer patients, kidney dialysis patients, 2 people with significant visual impairments, 1 person recovering from major heart surgery, a double hip replacement person who's in recovery, and multiple people who are wheelchair bound and do not have appropriate mobility. So because of the nature of the health issues present for those folks and the mobility issues, 3 meals a day are being provided to them while they are in that location, because it would be extremely difficult for them to access public transportation to get to the feeding programs that are established in the community.
So I think my biggest question of the night would be, if it's so important to handle these folks throughout the winter that have so many issues, why are we not doing it? Why has the Regency Inn been sitting empty since March? Like what that right there is abysmal on behalf of the city. Period. Why is it? It takes a cold spell for us to take care of what we deem our brothers and sisters and friends. I don't think we've thought through things that we can. I think we can do better as a community, and I don't think pallet homes or pallet shelters are the answer. I think we're wasting money on it, a lot of money. We're gonna spend $1.2 million on that thing, and we don't really. They're probably not going to last a whole lot. And we were talking about it October 10th. If a storm hits or a tornado comes through, if it can tear down a school building in a neighborhood that has brick homes, what the hell is it going to do to a pallet home? On item 9, I still am struggling with the overlap between IRC and GUM, how it's different. I don't understand, and Ms. Hightower can hopefully help me with this at some point. But when sitting in these homeless task force meetings, and we had this presentation a while back that was a wish list of COC members asking for more money because they want to help more people, yet we only got 1 application. I find that shocking. When we have so many people that have outreach and social work, I'm struggling with that. I think part of it's because the 10-day time period.
I will say that it is not unusual to not have a high number of responses when it relates to programs that are not on site of the agencies providing services. It is, for many of our partner agencies, a capacity issue. They barely have enough staff to provide the services they have on site. When they're asked to provide a service offsite or at a different location, they do not have the capacity to be able to do that. And again, as it relates to the 10-day timeframe, that's standard for us.
Well, and I run an organization that doesn't have a capacity to run a festival license fund for it. Yes, the city mandates it. And we can't even get more than a 20% cap, and I damn sure don't get 75,000 like the folk festival does, but we make it happen. So I'm just curious, like of the funding that the GUM is receiving, the 414,000 or the 484 from the IRC, what's that actually go towards? Is it hiring new social workers?
So it covers hiring of new staff, it covers food, it covers bus passes, and it covers security costs. And the security costs are significant for these sites.
Why is it so significant, Michelle?
It's just bottom line expensive. The lowest
No,
rate, and
Is
it's
that
the,
because there's a lot of criminal activity per the comments that were made earlier?
no, the security was something that was actually brought to us from council. They wanted to make sure that we had appropriate security on site. And so in order to do that, there's a rate sheet that security firms use. We've spoken to 12 different companies, and at the lowest rate that we are able to find, the security costs still outweigh the case management costs in most instances. But that was a security request from council.
Would it not make sense for us to hire our own security versus, in other words, breaking out the cost? Why are we paying GUM money for security and IRC money for security?
Initially, the city was paying directly for security costs. The number is not any different. It doesn't matter whether it passes through an agency or we pay it directly, the cost is the same. But from a funding standpoint, our funders, the best route to handle that from a funding perspective is for it to go through the agency that is providing the case management and not be a direct contract with the city and the security firm.
I find that hard to believe, because what the city has when we do it, if you've got two relatively small nonprofits, Greensboro Urban Ministry, I mean, relatively small compared to a $680 million budget. So they're handling security, the IRC is handling security, or Partnership Homes is handling security. When the city of Greensboro hires security for the depot, the parks, and security throughout the city, I would argue that the city of Greensboro has what's called scale. So we could have a better negotiating tactic than the IRC. Plus, from a line item perspective, it looks a heck of a lot better if the city is covering security than for that money to get lost in what would be deemed the IRC or GUM or specific agency when it's not what their job focus is. Their job focus is not security.
So it's a compliance issue for us, again, as I said, with our funding sources. And I will tell you that the rates that are being provided to those agencies are the exact same rates that the city pays for all of their security services that you just mentioned.
Well, I tell you, Michelle, you're quick. You got an answer for everything. You always do, even though you're suffering cutting back from COVID. I think there's a tremendous amount of questions that many folks, including myself, we're going to continue to have, and you're going to continue to hear. I'll stop now. Hope you feel better.
Thank you.
Tammy Thurn. Yeah, I'd like to ask a couple questions. Number one, Michelle, can you give us a breakdown of per day cost for the contracts that we've got right now and what's included in that per day cost for each of those?
Yes.
housing environments?
So as it relates to safe parking, the per day cost per individual is $10.08. As it relates to the doorway project, the cost per service per person per night is $27.75. And as it relates to the Regency, the cost of service per person per night is $92.89. And I would point out that that has to do, again, with the medical needs that are present on that site, and 24-hour case management and 3 meals a day having to be provided. So you'll see that as you go up through the acuity levels and the need levels, the cost gets higher.
Okay, and my next question was actually going to be for Deputy City Manager Chris Wilson. So if I can defer and if I can allow some other people to ask questions, and then when Chris gets back, I'll ask him some questions.
Sharon Hightower. And then Hugh, you're next.
Thank you, Mayor.
You're after, I had the list. Sharon and then Hugh.
All right, thank you very much. Much like Zach, I got a 1,000 questions, but I just don't think this is really the proper place to have those questions because we should really have explored this a lot more. I have said earlier, I just don't think there's a solid plan here. There's some elements I think that really need to be explored. I'm concerned, number one, of the responses to the RFPs because you had one per item. But I will say to you that as a member of the COC myself, listening on the board meetings, they had multiple concerns. And I think that's parcel why they didn't respond. Some of them felt it wasn't enough time to really respond adequately because you got to look at the whole picture. Secondly, they weren't a part of the initial discussions around this. So they didn't really feel included in the help for this population, even though they're doing some of the work. And so I know that those are some of the concerns, Zach, as you bring up. I will tell you why some of them didn't, because really, when you look at the work that you're trying to get done, you can't respond in 10 days. I understand that maybe be something that you've done in the past, but you got to look at the body of work and how you're responding with this. I'm also concerned that we got to go hire casework, social workers, when we do have entities that currently have caseworkers. Yes, some of it is workload, but I think if we work collaboratively together, this is the way to get this done. And that's not happening the way that it should really be happening. Because I see item I-8 and item I-9, it looks like services are being duplicative. It looks like we're charging and using each entity to do some of the same overlapping work. As to the shelters, there's one in particular that is not operational, as we know, because it's got some building issues. And so there's 86 rooms that are not online right now, but they are doing hotel program. They are putting people in hotels. So I think there again, if some of the safe parking programs that you're saying, well, let's park them for a couple of days, then put them in a hotel. There is some alternative where there is hotel being utilized. And I know because I've sent about 5 or 6 people in the last week to them saying this individual has nowhere to go. This individual needs rent paid, and they're making those things happen. So I'm a little concerned about the amount of money we're spending, and when we could maybe be using some of our partners who currently are doing some of the things, utilizing some of the same resources. And for me, I think we've got to be financially responsible in that regard. The other thing is, Mr. City Manager, and I said this some time ago, I'd asked for the COC to come here. Okay, and I'd like to do that again and ask that request again on a work session. Because many of the questions that I'm hearing can be answered by those that do that kind of work. And yes, we meet in a homeless task force And we're gonna start going every 2 weeks to meet there with that because we need long-term sustainable solutions. This is just temporarily, but it's a lot of money being spent temporarily. And I know we do white flag every year. And I didn't realize white flag every year was costing us this amount of money. If it's valid, it is, but I think we really need to think long and hard about this. I also am concerned about all the activity at Regency and then those partners that are working within the body of those clients have no access. And so they certainly need access. If they've got relationships with those individuals, they need to have access because maybe they know how to deal with them in a manner that will maybe eliminate some of those issues, police being called, and all of that. And that's always been a problem. One of the reasons we had to shut down Heritage House because of the multitude of calls and drug activity and prostitution that was going on there. And so that's what happens when you start to concentrate certain types of behaviors in one space. And so there's a lot of drug activity and how we're dealing with that. And it's concerning to me that those things are being done. I'd like for us to really explore more how we can create this collaborative partnerships amongst all of the people who are doing the work in this regard. I did vote for the pallet shelter, but as I've explored it later on and looked deeper into it, because it kind of got thrown at you, in a hurry because city manager wants us to do something. I respect that tremendously. You're trying to find solutions and I applaud that. But as I looked into it, found out another municipality right here, High Point, had them and hadn't done anything with theirs because there were so many questions around how do they implement that. And I heard the lady say that when I was on the COC call, when she asked you, once you find out what you're gonna do, you need to share that with her. So I think it is a concern that we don't just throw these pallet shelters up and then, we find problems that really gonna be, I think, sustainable. So if we could do that for me, I think I'd like to have, I know we're on a time crunch, so I'm not saying not do white flag. By all means, we do that every year. Matter of fact, we need to raise the temperature. It ought to be 32 degrees when it's cold, because it's rather than wait until 25, because 32 is cold, freezing. So if you freeze a popsicle, you can freeze a person. So I think we should look at that. But I would like to explore this a little bit more, dig more into the financial piece. I don't want to spend an hour asking all the questions Mr. Matheny asked, but I think there are valid concerns here. And so if we can just do some temporary fixing before we have to spend all this other monies.
That's what I'm thinking too. What will it take to cover what's coming up?
Right.
And put this on hold until we can we need to really look at this holistically. Are you finished, Sharon? I'm
Yes, sir.
sorry, I know I interrupted.
Can I
I'm gonna
jump
go
in?
back to Tammy and
Can I-
have her ask the question.
Can I jump in quickly? I just need to address a couple of things.
Sure.
One is, again, I've had this said repeatedly, but I know that Director Kennedy has tried to respond to that, and that is that 10-day procurement period. It's the legal requirement. And I will say also that if this is a space you work in 24/7, you work in this space 24/7, and an RFP comes out, even if it's for 5 days, you are ready to do it because that's what you do on a day-to-day basis. It doesn't have to take 30 days to put that together. I was a consultant, it was my life. Even if an RFP comes out and you have to respond within 24 hours, if that's what you do on a day-to-day basis, you're ready to go. This is 10 days. I know that all of you, like I did, received emails from the COC on their newsletter announcing it to so many people. There wasn't a wide net that went out. And I believe that if we had had people who wanted us to extend that beyond 10 days, they would have responded to us asking for that, but there was none. So I just wanted to bring that up. But also, again, it was driven by a sense of urgency that we were facing, understanding that time sensitivity is something we had to be mindful of. And so a 20-day, 30-day RFP process for something like this that's been debated for even prior to me arriving here, I think that we needed to show that we were just as urgent in making that request. And the second piece of it is the pilot shelters. I know that that's not the conversation tonight. Tonight is really more about providing service. But we did bring one, I believe, to Greensboro, and we assembled it just so that people could see. And I think that's
We
what-
did.
yeah.
When the representatives from the Department of Insurance came, we brought over one of the units from High Point. There are a couple of pretty significant distinctions. The units that High Point, or let me not say High Point, the units that Open Door Ministry purchased are not the same ones that we have been investigating. And there was also no coordination with the city of High Point when those units were purchased. So that's part of the reason it never got off the ground. But DOI representatives, and there were multiple of them, I think there were 12 of them, had an opportunity to view the version from High Point, which is a lesser version than the ones we're interested in. And we had multiple meetings to discuss all of those safety concerns.
And if you remember, you had approved us for up to 40, but based on requirements, that number has to come down to 30 because they're requiring 20 feet spacing between each shelter. So this is something that we understand. Safety, security, all of these are very important. And that's why, again, we brought that. And that's supposed to be for 6 months.
It's a maximum of 180 days.
Okay, 180 days, yes. So I think that we tried as much as possible to cover our bases. And I believe that that version of the pilot shelter is still here.
Yep.
Okay, because I've
No, I'm
visited-
sorry. No, it's not. It
Okay,
has been
okay.
returned.
Because I went to visit it twice. I know that they assembled it within a short period of time, but it's also, a lesser version than what we actually have. But it allowed DOI to be able to give us enough guidance as to, before they made their decision.
And I would just add that the other important piece of that is to the point I think Councilwoman Hightower made, these are temporary solutions. We are actively working on getting 175 permanent supportive housing units off the ground. We need an interim step in between that, and that's what the collection of these projects allows, is time while we're getting those units, while the acquisition is taking place for those units.
I find it hard to believe we're gonna invest $1 million for a temporary basis. That's one. The second thing is if we cut we were gonna buy 30 pallet homes and now we're getting narrowed down to 20.
No,
No, 40 down to
So
30.
you've cut it in half,
40 to 30,
40 to 30. Okay,
because we
So-
have to have a space of 20 feet between each of them.
okay. So that's just another example of we're forcing this, where DOI is saying, okay, it's on you. It's a white paper, but that's not a confirmed, we support this. It's just okay, try these things and hope that fire works out with it, because fire has not approved them. But during this whole time, we've decreased the number of people that we're going to be able to help. That should have been a red flag to the city to say, okay, hold on a second, before we shove these pallet homes down and put money into something that may or may not actually happen, what other things have we done that could have been somewhat permanent? Is there a smaller hotel that we could have bought in the meantime? Because as I drive around the interstate, I see plenty of places that look abandoned or something that needs to be done. And I remember, you got the Coliseum Inn. Yvonne probably remembers that. We bought that, I think, in 2008, plowed it down. It's been sitting empty since 2008 for 14 years.
Right.
And we still own the damn thing and nothing's really being done. There was an opportunity there that we could have tried to be more aggressive. And I know the planning department has something out on it right now, and there's some folks interested, but my point being, there are other places that we could buy to actually house people today. And we're not doing it. And we had to decrease by 25% the amount of people that we're going to be able to support in these pallet shelters.
Well, I think when we initially brought the number to council, we said that the range we were looking at was 30 to 40. I think Councilman Holston said, how many can we get, make the number bigger? So the range for us was always 20 to 40.
But
When
you
we
didn't
got the
say that
determination,
DOI was going to have to limit the amount of space and require safety procedures.
It does, think about it, this though. It
But
does
you
depend
just
on
said-
the size of the,
I'll
of the,
stop.
of the
I'll
land you're
stop.
looking.
Out of respect for my council members. All I'm saying is, yet again, there's more concern over this, and to Council Hightower's point, we're rushing into something that may or may not actually happen.
I'm gonna go back to Tammy and have you ask your question, then I'm going to Hugh and Mary Kay, and then we need to decide if we want to delve into this deeper and further and how we'll do that. And if that is what we want to do, it may not be, but if it is, how do we handle the white flag days and that kind of thing? Because I don't want anybody to be out there and not have someplace to go when it's freezing. Now, let's go. No, I'm going to Tammy. This is it. Come on. Come on, Tammy.
Thank you. To confirm, there's been a lot of information thrown out there as fact, and I'd like to just go back over, instead of leaving everything that's been thrown out there, what's true, what isn't. My understanding is, or let me clarify, ask that question a different way. Michelle, Chris, can one of you talk about the activity and police activity, et cetera, last winter after we started winter shelter, and what took place after that time once we were sheltering people out there? Because I think the public's gotten the impression from some accusations that, quite frankly, it was a you-know-what show. And I don't think that is true, and I don't want to leave the public with that impression. So can you tell us rough numbers, what happened with those people that we winter sheltered at Regency after we got the temporary housing folks out?
yeah, so as I said, we certainly had calls for service. There were holdover folks that were on site at Regency. Once those folks had been relocated and addressed, calls for service went down dramatically, to the point that we had feedback from residents in the general area talking about the decrease in calls for service to that location. I'd have to look it up to tell you the exact numbers, but that is the case.
Okay, that's what I remember, that we got some feedback from those in the area that the situation was so much better once we had winter shelter there and had gotten rid of the prior tenants. Also, Chris, there have been all sorts of accusations lobbed tonight against the IRC about their failure to report and failing audits and not using proper reporting mechanisms, et cetera. I'm wondering, since you worked closely over neighborhood development in the past, if you can clarify, if you can share with us from the city's perspective, what actually happened rather than just the accusations that are out there.
I'd be happy to do that. I'd like some time to look back over it because I see many, many audits. My recollection was during that same period of time, we had some issue with multiple audits based on changes in tax laws and how they changed their fiscal year. That's one thing I recall, but I'd need to look back over the information to speak responsibly to any of the things we heard tonight. But we put them on the website for a reason, for transparency. And typically if there's an issue, Lynn Lucas, who's our auditor, and I chat about those things and discuss the severity of it. And if there's something there that is kind contrary to public trust, we do recommend termination or cancellation of contracts.
Okay, and you don't recall off the top of your head any reason or any problems along those lines?
I do not recall off the top of my head, but again,
Okay.
I'd love the opportunity to look at it.
And I'm happy to say, just from a full transparency standpoint, that the years of COVID were profoundly difficult. And timeliness was certainly an issue. It was for practically everyone who stayed open consistently during that time. Those are the only findings that ever occurred at the IRC during my tenure, and it was related to COVID funded projects that we were doing outside our normal operations. And it was just incredibly difficult. And that's the truth.
Thank you. Chris, if you could get back to us with that information going forward, it would be helpful. You know, at this point, it is cold and wet and miserable outside. And I think whether we have questions about the pallet homes, and I understand others have questions about that, but at this point, we need to know how much money do we need to approve tonight to get people off the streets, to get them sheltered, to make sure no one's at risk of freezing to death in our community, because that is totally unacceptable.
It is.
I think the people that need to be housed at the Regency, that need the medical attention, that need the meals provided, that are unable to get to ride the bus to wherever they needed to go to get meals, that are unable to fend for themselves. I think we need to approve that and approve that tonight so that we've got those people safe and accounted for, and honor those people as individuals and make sure that they're provided for now that the weather's really cold. In terms of anything else, we need to know how much, whether it be pallet homes or whether it be hotel rooms. We need to know how much it's going to cost us to get people off the street and have them safe for the winter. And I'm hoping Mr. City Manager or Ms. Kenny, one of you all can address this. You know, we already approved the pallet homes. We knew at the time, and we approved those pallet homes pending the research and approval of the insurance regulations and pending approval of the fire department. And that was part of the motion that we passed. I believe more than one meeting has passed. So if anybody wanted to reconsider it, Mr. City Manager, it's my understanding that if you were on the winning side of a vote and wanted to change your mind, you had to do so at the next meeting. Is that correct?
I believe so, yeah.
That is correct.
Yes.
Okay, so I think at this point, you know, we need to move forward with something. I understand people's concerns. People voted against them before. As far as I'm concerned, it is still a good viable option. And I think we need to move forward, but one way or another, we need to pass something tonight to make sure people are safe in our community.
Councilwoman Thurman, to answer your question, and I was just confirming with Caitlin to make sure I'm correct. The breakdown for tonight is $100,000 would be allocated for families and hotel stays. The safe parking initiative is $184,000, and that includes case management and security. The doorway project is $200,000. That includes case management, security, and bus passes. And the remainder is $415,000 for Regency. That includes 24-hour case management, security, 3 meals a day, and supportive medical services. So that's the breakdown of that $899,000.
If that's the case, then I would like to break this up so that we can vote on the 414,000 for Regency under one vote.
Yeah, I have
And-
one more person who wants to speak.
Mr. Huber needs.
Well,
to
two
speak.
more people. that
Several
want
Yeah,
to speak.
not-
I'm not sure. Fine, can I finish speaking though? So
Yes.
Yeah, we need to.
I would propose that we break that down as much as you all want to into subcomponents, but I do think we need to approve the Regency and get that handled. And then, you know, perhaps we look at the pallet home figure as potentially being for pallet homes or hotel rooms to be determined at some time, but that way the money is there. And if we need to put people in hotel rooms because it's cold outside, that we have the funds and have approved the funds to do that.
Just clarification, Michelle, we've
Okay.
already funded White Flag, correct?
White Flag is funded separately and is already funded.
That was thrown out
Okay,
as
that,
well.
that's good. That's what I need to know. Hugh and then Nancy Hoffman.
Yes, thank you, Madam
Yes,
Mayor
you
Pro
may.
Tem. And this question really is for the city managers, Assistant City Manager McCray, and also for you, Michelle. Just stepping back a little bit, trying to wrap my arms around the entire picture. And I've talked about having the entire plan, not just a piece here and a piece there, which is what we seem to see on a council by council and work session by work session basis. What is the total population that we're trying to serve here? The unsheltered, the unhoused. What is the total population? And then as a sub, how much of that population are we serving with, the White Flag, the hotel assistance, the Regency, the doorway, and the safe parking?
Sure. So these projects are all for people who are literally homeless, not people who are already in a shelter or in a temporary situation. The best estimates that we have is we need about between 250 and 350 spaces to accommodate that. These programs collectively would accommodate 250 individuals.
So that includes White Flag also. That's White Flag.
Does not include White Flag.
Pardon me.
That does not include White Flag.
Okay, so then the hotel assistance, the Regency, the doorway, and the safe parking all are between 250 and 350.
So for Regency, the doorway and safe parking, that's 160 individuals. That's on a conservative end. We base it on low numbers, not higher projections. And then the family hotels make up the remaining portion of that through the course of these months.
And then the safe parking is
50 individuals is a good average, 50 individuals per night.
15 individuals per night.
50, 50.
50, I'm sorry, there's a bad echo in here. And
Could be
that,
me.
and that 50 is costing us 184.
Yeah, it breaks down to a total cost per person of $3,680 for 365 days of service.
65. And the doorway project, which we're buying the pallet homes with, right?
60 individuals. And it breaks down to a cost per person of $3,333 dollars per person for the entire length of the project, or an overnight per person cost of $27.75.
And we're purchasing those, we're not leasing those.
Correct.
And but the safe parking has the rented restrooms.
Safe parking has restrooms already on the facility on site.
Okay, so again, this is the picture, I think, or a picture that we need to have painted so that we're looking and we're addressing the whole problem, not just a part of it, or at least we know where the gaps are. We know where we can fill in. Do we have this is another question. Do we have an inventory of the shelters and their capacity?
So I think Councilman Matheny asked that question earlier, and we can certainly report back out to you all the regular operating capacity of our shelters and the current operating capacity. The county maintains that information as part of the COC, and we can pull that down. And to your point, in terms of fragmented versus a holistic approach, this actually, it sometimes may be hard to see, but is a holistic approach. The notion in terms of addressing homelessness is you want to provide the least intrusive amount of services possible for someone to get back on their feet. And there's a very fine line that happens between empowering a person to transition back to stability and becoming enabling. For example, most individuals who are sleeping in cars do not need long-term services. They're having a specific incident happening with limited interventions. They can typically get back to normal much quicker than someone who's chronically homeless and has a host of health issues. So it's a staggered approach based on the needs of each individual population. Families need to be in a hotel room so a kid has a place to do homework and has an address that school systems can use to pick them up. Folks who are in the doorway project, they're able to move about. They can get on a bus and go to the feeding programs and access the services that they've been accessing. So you want to put the interventions in place that are the lowest level of interventions needed to get that person back where they need to be.
Okay, and in addition to, and thank you, in addition to the shelter capacity, can you also get the utilization of that capacity?
Can you
Get the
say,
utilization, in other words, if they have 100 beds and there are only 40 being used, then they're at 40% utilization. So
yes, yes, we
Okay.
can get that. I'm sorry. I was thinking you were asking were they currently filled?
no, just the utilization and that'll get us there. And there's been a lot of talk about the white flag, I think at 25 degrees, and I know that you're not at the IRC. And I just don't know, but how was that number chosen, 25 degrees?
So the short version of that is in 2014, Barbara Harris was the director of housing and neighborhood development. She called Jim Robinson and myself up and said, we have people dying on the streets in the winter. We need a plan. The three of us sat down, met multiple times. There weren't a lot of white flag programs in the country at that time. So we started looking at data that would tell when it becomes life threatening and taking into account the capacity issues that we knew our partner agencies had. There was a study that had been completed by the military that had to do with not military people, but folks in a sedentary position. In temperatures, when would hypothermia set in? And that study indicated that at 25 degrees or below, after 2 hours, hypothermia set in. So that was what we chose at that time to be the cutoff mark. Again, that was in 2014, and a lot has changed since then. There are many more white flag programs operating all over the country, but that was where we got that data. And we worked collectively, the fire department, myself and Barbara, to establish what became the White Flag Emergency Shelter Plan. And I think it's important too, like as we talk about people applying for projects or responding to RFPs, since 2014, there have only been 3 agencies that ever participated in any of our emergency shelter operations, and they are the Interactive Resource Center, Greensboro Ministry, and the YWCA. And in the last 3 years, only Greensboro Ministry and the IRC have participated in those services. So it's become their wheelhouse. It's been almost a decade of doing this work, and it allows our shelter providers to stick with their on-site case management and those types of services. So in terms of response to RFP, that's kind of part of that. But that's where the 25-degree mark came from. We have taken a look and agreed. We believed then, we believe now that freezing should be freezing. It makes it a lot easier and a lot cleaner. The reality is currently we operate White Flag Emergency Shelter an average of 29 nights per winter, and that stayed consistent since 2014. The way that has always been run, and the reason it has run so well, is new staff are not brought on to operate White Flag. It is existing staff of the IRC and Greensboro Ministry. So these are folks that are well versed with the community. They're used to working with their familiar faces. And that is what really allowed us to stop having to use rec centers as emergency shelter locations. And in order to move to a 32-degree temperature cutoff for that, a lot of things would change. You would have to bring on additional staff to support the number of nights that triggered. So there are capacity concerns that have to be taken into account. Those agencies have to be able to provide that service. So there's just a lot of pieces about it. It is certainly something that we would like to do moving into next year. Frankly, when it was brought to us, we didn't have time to make that transition from a capacity standpoint with our partner agencies without frankly having to use rec centers as a secondary site. And that's not in the best interest of anyone.
Right. And then, thank you. And then currently for White Flag, you said the IRC and the urban ministries, are they both participating? The only 2 participating now?
Correct.
And are they available? Are they both available for White Flag Sunday to Saturday, Saturday to Sunday, whatever it is? Sunday to
Correct.
Saturday?
Yes.
And 24 hours? If the temperature goes to 14 degrees and it's a Saturday, they're both available?
Yeah, so White Flag typically operates from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. That's typically the hours because the temperature drop happens overnight. In the event, and this is historically true, anytime that temperature has remained that low during daytime hours, they've also stayed open during those hours as well. But typically it's not needed except in the overnight hours. And they're both available 7 days a week. Sunday night, we almost had to trigger the first White Flag night because the temperature was on the fence, but it's a 7-day operation, and the timing of it, again, is 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. unless there are daytime weather concerns. And in that case, daytime services are provided as well.
Thank you. And then my last point is going to be on the RFP. I also am concerned about the 10-day time frame, and would like to even open it up for another 10 to 15 days just to make sure that we have all the different inquiries in for that.
So I would just really echo what the city manager said. And again, having spent 20 years managing nonprofits, you know, if your agency has the capacity to respond to an RFP or not. It should never take, for the type of RFPs that we're putting out, it's very different if you're putting out a large scale development project or something like that that requires different levels of participation. But for these types of service related RFPs, that is more than enough time for appropriate responses. And that's fairly standard. And again, that's been a department standard, has been and still is, because there is not a huge depth of information that has to be pulled together outside of the work that your organization is already doing.
Thank you.
Nancy Hoffman and then Mary Kay and
Thank you. Michelle, when you and I talked this afternoon, what I was trying to get at, and just, you know, if you can approximate this for me, including the cost of the pallet homes that we're buying, which are one-time costs, but we will have them for a number of years. What are we estimating that the total cost of housing the population that we need during this winter period? Every program that we've got outlined here.
For the winter this year, it's somewhere around $1.5 million.
How much?
About 1.5 million.
Okay.
Once if taking into account the purchase of that and everything, every other program that we have going on.
All right, hold on one second, because I had calculated it at 2 million. So let me do 5. $1.5 million is 0.0021 of our entire city budget. Now, this is, you know, we can beat this horse to death tonight. This is not a perfect process, but we have an obligation to get this done and to get it done now. So I just wanted to put the whole thing in perspective in terms of when we look at the entirety of the dollars that we spend in the city of Greensboro. This is 0.0021. Can we do better? Can we plan better next year? Hopefully.
well, even if it's that, Nancy, because Mary Kay just mentioned that a lot of this is federal money.
Well,
and that would decrease it in terms of, that's all I'm saying.
I think, but I think you're saying I'm just saying
total cost. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
My turn, I
Mary
think.
Kay, and then did you have your hand up? Okay, I'm gonna ask you to try to be as
Yeah,
quick as you can.
We're trying to power through.
We haven't had a break. These folks have gone, so go ahead.
So this is the point that I mentioned to Mayor Pro Tem. A lot of these monies are federal from the coronavirus. Part of it is ARP, correct? Do you want to quickly break that down, or?
There's $100,000 of an ARP allocation that was made that is a part of that $1.5 million that we discussed. Much of these dollars are COVID related or have COVID tiebacks that we have a deadline on spending and need to get out the door. The remainder of these are ESG, CDBG, and Nussbaum, a little bit of Nussbaum funding to support these projects.
Exactly my point. I do want to say that if I recall correctly, back in October, we had a workshop on this, a work session, and none of these questions came up. We directed city staff to move forward. I know that they have been working diligently and very hard on this. We've received and quite a few emails from the city manager that came from Michelle, were transferred to him. The fire department, everybody's been working on compliance. You know, we have city council meetings where within 10 minutes, we spend $10 million. And all I heard, you know, early on this fall was, what are you going to do about the homeless? What are you going to do about the homeless? We heard it every single time. Now, of course, we want to get the homeless people with services surrounding them and getting them moved out of their homeless situation, correct?
Yes.
But we wanted to get them from having to sleep outdoors. They're sleeping in the streets. So I agree with Mrs. Thurm. I truly believe that, you know, these monies are from homeless prevention funds
Correct.
and the coronavirus. And it's not I mean, I'm just perplexed because we do go through council meetings where we're spending 50, 60, $70 million on things and nobody bats an eyelash. And these are funds that are being filtered through us to help those who are homeless and keep them from sleeping outdoors, which is what we have all been saying we are trying to do. So I'll stop there, but I just really think I would like to move this forward.
Mary Kay, I understand what you're saying, but in those meetings, you don't have people from the public coming and pointing out things that we need to at least consider. And that was the difference. All right, Sharon.
Thank you, Mr. Pro Tem. I won't take long. I'm just gonna ask a couple questions that 78% of the voters put me here, asked me to make sure I did, even for the 22% who didn't. So you talk about feeding people over at the Regency. What happened to the partnership with Salvation Army? They have a truck where they go out and actually bring the prepared meals. We did that during the tornado and they did it. So that's, to me, is where, again, when we collaborate, that can come out of that.
So I certainly understand that. And Salvation Army has made referrals for shelter at the Regency, or sorry, for shelter for people within hotel stays. So I know that they're familiar with what we have on the plate here. But again, we didn't receive a response as it relates to any of these programs or services.
Right, but I think if you're talking feeding, which I don't know if that's within the body of your RFP, then I just see that as an opportunity for the amount of food you were talking about spending. You're spending it there or less, a little bit less, but making sure they're getting hot meals every day, because they can't drive or go where they need to go. And I think that's something we ought to consider. And then.
And sorry, I'll tell you, Councilwoman Hightower, we're working with Funderburks as it relates to making sure some of those meals are provided.
Some of the food gets delivered to them.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. It's a good place to.
It is. It's
go
good
to.
food.
Mhm.
It's warm, it's healthy, it's really good.
Yep. I agree. I agree with that. Yeah, and so I'm familiar, but when people ask me to ask questions for the sake of public transparency, I'm gonna continue to do that because that's responsible. So would you think a half of what you're proposing tonight would get you started, or the full amount is tonight that you're presenting would get you started on White Flag and moving people?
So
out
White
of the
Flag,
cold?
as to Councilman Matheny's point, White Flag is funded, but White Flag only really addresses a really small portion of the population and only for a very few nights. I think that we laid out the entire project because each step of this is needed for each individual subgroup that needs to be addressed. So our recommendation is for the full package as it relates to this. And I think, Councilwoman Hoffman made a really good point. This is messy work. It's not super easy. It's not linear. There are always bumps in the road. And it's really difficult because there are so many unique needs for each population. And so you kind of have to throw the kitchen sink at homelessness to address the myriad of needs that exist. And that really is what this is. But this was for us a response to you all being very clear that housing is a priority, that addressing homelessness is a priority. And what I heard loud and clear was you wanted some immediate responses. We did thorough research around what those were and what we could get propped up to be in place this winter. And as we wait for permanent units to be off the ground, and these are all best practices as it relates to kind of what is happening nationally. So we are responding quickly and this is moving quickly, but that really is in response to the directive we received from you all to try to meet your need for getting something done.
Okay, that kind of just answers my question as regard to that, but I also know too, when you talk about not having to use rec centers, I know last year, I believe the year before, you used church. Or
so the churches have not been in use for 2 years.
A woman center or.
Yeah, there was a time that churches were heavily used. COVID began and all of our church partnerships dried up. So they haven't been in play for more than 2 years. And as you know, they served a lot of folks. And when we lost those, that meant a lot more folks on the streets during the winter. So these fill some of those gaps as well.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Okay. That's it for the speaking. I need a motion.
I move to approve the funding on this item for the $414,743.
Second.
Okay, council, please vote. I'm gonna vote on both of them at the same time, 8 and 9, I think it is. That is first is 8, okay, thank you. Ms. Hoffman? Thurm?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Abuzawader?
Yeah.
Zach? Hugh?
Yes.
Hightower?
Yes,
That passes 6-1. Okay. Now number 9.
Move I-9.
Mhm. Council will vote. We did. We voted on 8 and now we're voting on 9.
I thought Councilperson Thurm's point was to break out what was needed to do the Regency. You just forego that and went for both of them.
I think.
Yes, I didn't hear any consensus from anybody else that they wanted to do that. So I thought this was that.
Ms. Hoffman?
what did you want to do?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem,
I'm a no. Abuzawader? Zach? Hugh?
Yes.
Hightower?
No,
And that is
4-3,
1, 2, 3,
4-3. It's on your screen.
4, 5. 5.
4-3.
4-3. All right, that vote is 4-3. Okay, cool.
Thank you all. Appreciate it.
All right, do we have people who want to put people up for boards and commissions? Okay. Ms. Thurm?
I'd like to reappoint Tracy Furman for the Minimum Housing Commission. She was just recently voted as vice chair of that commission. Want to reappoint her.
Okay, say a second.
Second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody else? Have board of, yes? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, he's approved.
and I have Eric, I have an appointment. You got an
Eric
appointment?
who?
You got an appointment?
I didn't hear you, Sharon.
Oh, Eric Ireland,
Okay, for what?
to the Sustainability Council. I have Miss Vida, she doesn't want to be reappointed and her term ends in December.
Second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, if you could limit your remarks, your comments tonight, especially, because we've had a lot of deep conversation, which we needed to have. But I'm gonna start with Ms. Hoffman. Ms. Thurm.
The only council comment I have tonight is a shout out to Mrs. Levy's 5th grade class from Sedgefield Elementary. I was with them today for reading day as a guest reader, and I promised them that I would mention them on TV. So just a shout out to that class. Thank you so much. They were a great class and I really enjoyed being with them this morning.
I spoke with a friend's homeschool to the school for young people today, and they were delightful and asked wonderful questions. And probably our future council people and leaders in this city. Ms. Abuzawader?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I did have a whole list, but I'm only going to talk about 2 very quick things. Mrs. Thurman and I were at the naming of the Federal Aviation Administration Tower today in honor of Kay Hagan. And also the road leading to the tower was renamed to Henry Isaacson Way because he was so instrumental during that time. So Senator Hagan was able to get the money for the tower, and it was sorely needed. The second thing I will mention is last evening, our city manager had his community conversation. I think many of you know, some may not, that about 17 PM when he was giving his remarks, we had a gentleman who had a medical emergency. I just have to say that PNR staff Kobe Riley jumped into action and started CPR. Then along came police officer TJ Miller, and he retrieved the AED. And with their efforts, the man, I can't tell you how many times he had to stop and start the CPR. It was very emotional, actually. And it was very heartwarming to see him leaving and waving at everybody when he left Lewis Recreation Center, the gentleman who had the heart incident. So I really would like to thank staff. Ty was very instrumental in helping as well. All of the staff there, all the GPD deputies, EMS coming, the fire department, everyone was just amazing. And it was basically, to me, saved that gentleman's life. So thank you to all who were involved in that. Thanks.
I forgot, Zach, if I may, I forgot to mention, I went to the Rosa Foundation's Men Who Make Positive Changes, and it was wonderful. Justice Henry Fry and Odell Cleveland were two of the people who received awards, and it was a lovely event. And it was a great representation and messages to younger people, that especially young men, that they can do great things as well. Zach?
Yeah, I saw that. That's very nice. I want to reiterate my thanks to the city manager and the event that Mary Kay was at in District 3 last night. I was texting with Mary Kay just to say, hey, and everything, what's going on? And when she told me that somebody fell out and that city staff jumped into action to save this man's life is amazing. And so what we can do to honor the folks that saved that man's
That
life
would be great.
would be a great thing.
We've
would
asked
be.
about
I
that.
agree.
Yeah, they've got to be. Thank you, Zach. And
Yeah.
Zach did come by earlier in the evening. He was there for a while.
I'm glad we got out of there. My kids would have been traumatized.
Yeah, they would have.
Dad, I never want to go to a city meeting again. The only thing I'll say is, we had a lively discussion a little while ago about the housing, and I get the comment that it's 1% or less than 1% of the budget. And that's true, but it's less than 1% of the budget that we hear most about constantly at every meeting. And to ask hard questions is not a bad thing, because I am, as a new council member, although I've had some previous history, I'm disappointed in the lack of action and the lack of cohesiveness coming through all of our organizations from the COC, and allowing folks to get in there, and the same old folks are there, which is fine if it works, but something hadn't been working for the last 10 years. And since I've been downtown, yeah, I do see it every day. And I saw new faces coming downtown today, and it's deeply concerning. And the fact that we still can't get it right based on some of the answers that I got. And I heard a comment that, where were these questions October 10th? Well, they were kind of the same ones I asked October 10th. And so I'm sorry I had to reiterate some of them, but until we get proper answers, and until we get a proper holistic strategy, instead of, as Mr. Holston said, or excuse me, Mr. Hoffman, on a piecemeal approach, then we got to continue to ask these questions. And so, I get that we vote on $1 million water and sewer projects, and that certainly helps our economic growth. But when you're at what price per capita is it to help get some people off the street and get and demand the right action? What's that cost to a person? And maybe it's less than what our $680 million budget is, which is another reason I'm so disappointed in some of the ARP decisions that were brought to us. Like, what are we, my first budget was $350 million. Like, we have an ample amount of money to make shit happen. Excuse me, Mayor. We got ample money to put investments in, including carpet. If we can carpet the MMOB, we can carpet a library. So let's just keep asking tough questions and get better results.
Well, I think the more we discuss issues that are important to people, the better we all are. Mr. Holston?
Yes, just a couple of things here. I want to say that back on November 5th, Councilwoman Hightower and I had the opportunity to join the Rosa Foundation at the Warnersville Recreation Center for their health fair. They did vaccines and health screenings. It was, and also the GPD was there, and they cooked their wonderful food, especially the burned hot dogs that I love so much. Also that very same evening, the Jala's Upright Services hosted their third annual Taste of the World Gala. And I know that City Manager Jayoba and also Councilwoman Wells was there. It was a wonderful event. And just last week, the city manager and I had the honor of joining an event sponsored by the Chamber of Commerce and also GPD, a violence preparedness workshop that was held out at Gilbarco. In light of what's happened just recently at UVA, it's just a timely conversation that office and professionals are able to get that information directly from the experts in the field. I want to thank Lieutenant Corey Flowers, who gave that presentation on behalf of the Greensboro Housing Coalition. I mean, the Greensboro Police Department. And then also I want to say, and I've been criticized for it in the past, but in District 3, we had the great opportunity to join the Natural Science Center, had their GLOW event, and Councilman Matheny was there along with Councilwoman Abuzwaiter and also Councilwoman Thurm. It was a wonderful event there at the Science Center. If you haven't been there, please go, whether it's for the GLOW event or anything else. It's a great gym and economic driver for the city of Greensboro. And that completes my comments, Madam Mayor Pro Tem.
Ms. Sharon?
Thank you. Yeah, you and I did attend the Rosa Foundation Health Fair where I got my second booster actually. Any more that out there, I'll get some more. I get boosted as often as I can. That was a good event too, by the way, in the community at Warnersville Center. And then last Sunday, November 6th, was with Hayes Taylor Y. They had their annual banquet. Very nice, very well attended, and a good investment. And so some of the ARP monies that went to Hayes Taylor Y. And that is to help them expand their daycare service. They are one of the few 5-star daycares that we have. And so that is something that we should be investing in at all costs. On Monday, the 21st, District 1 will host a listening session with Ty. He will be there, Ty. Try not to bring so much excitement this time. But either way you bring it, we'll accept it. Let me also say this, and we can go. I'm never ever going to apologize for asking the questions, whether they rub you wrong or not. That's why I was put here, not for a self-agenda, not for anybody else's agenda, but to make sure that the people's money is accounted for and that their issues are addressed. And that's from homelessness to economic development, to improving the community and the quality of life and making sure that people live well. And I'm never, ever going to apologize to anyone for ensuring that I ask those questions. It's good conversation, but it's also a responsibility that I have and I take it serious. Thank you.
Mr. Did you want to say something?
Yeah, I did want to say two more things. One is, I
Okay,
can,
go ahead.
can never give this up, but the NCCJ held its 56th annual Brotherhood Sisterhood Citation Award dinner this past week, and council was there in full force. I won't name everybody, but I think everyone was there. It was a wonderful event. It was great to be back there in person. And then I'm going to also, I think, speak to a little bit about what Councilwoman Hightower was just stating. When we have these public hearings, there is a lot of information that we have, and I'll say it openly, that during that conversation, Councilman Matheny and Councilwoman Hightower, they were both right. We need to be as effective and as efficient as we possibly can be. We get a lot of information. We have work sessions. We have access to city staff. We can ask questions. The other side of it is when we get to these sessions, it looks as if it's very truncated if we run through things very quickly. So it's very good that we have a city staff here to at least give us a summary of what's going on so that those who are watching and listening on television, those who are residents of Greensboro have an idea of what's going on. So they're both correct. It's just that we need to find a way to make sure that we handle them both as effectively and as transparently as possible. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
That was a good statement. Mr. Manager?
Thank you very much. I'd like to thank Councilmember Matheny and Councilwoman Habuzueta for coming to the talk with Ty last night. I think we had good questions, and I think that we were able to engage in positive dialogue. But we have a second one tomorrow. It's in District 2. It's at the McGirt Horton Library. Yeah, okay. So it starts the same time, 6 to 7. And then I think the next one is in District 1. So I'm looking forward to it tomorrow, but just want to say thank you for that, but also looking forward to those who will join us. I believe we have a Kiwanis check presentation.
Yes. Thank you. I was going to mention it, but I said I wasn't going to do my list because we were short on time. So I'm a member of the Kiwanis Club of Greensboro, and our mission is to help children either with feeding them, clothing them, or working toward them being safe. So I was asked to find out if there was anything in the city that might be appropriate for that. And I found out that the Greensboro Fire Department has been wanting a fire safety trailer. And with the help of Mr. Chris Wilson, I was able to approach our foundation, and the Kiwanis Foundation is giving $50,000 in order to assist purchasing the fire safety trailer. And the good thing about that is it will be taken into neighborhoods where fire safety needs to be shared with all of the residents. As you know, we've got a fire crescent where there are a lot of fires in certain areas, and taking this trailer into those areas, it has scenarios inside that are actually like a fire, and then you put it out, things like that. I know the fire department, but anyway, our check presentation is this Thursday, 1 p.m. in the Tanger Center parking lot. So if anyone would like to come, any of the media would like to come, any council members would like to come, we'd certainly love to have you there. So we will be doing that on Thursday, the 17th at 1 p.m. Tanger Center lot. Thank you.
One other thing, Mayor Pro Tem, I wanted to ask, can I go see this pallet shelter that everybody else done seen?
I believe it's been disassembled, right? I think it has been disassembled and returned, but I do have pictures of the assemblage.
Well, I would have liked to seen it before you disassembled it.
Y'all work that out. Mr. City Attorney,
I have nothing.
move to adjourn somewhere. Sharon did that, move to adjourn it. You are, all in favor, say aye. You adjourned. No, I did. At the first I did. I've been with this funeral stuff, people coming in from England. He has 2 sisters in England and 1 brother in Georgia. His brother, my brother-in-law, his brother in Georgia used to be the rebel DJ when he went to A&T. Did you ever listen to that? But he's a brilliant engineer, but it's just been one thing after that. I'm just tired. Done good.
Bring me some dessert.
Yeah, well, might be a few minutes.
I don't care, I'll be in the car.